Hello, everybody. It's a late start tonight. I normally reserve that for a Friday cast, I guess. So, for those of you who maybe aren't familiar, I should probably go into the main menu so the cinematic doesn't pop in. So, for those of you who maybe don't follow the channel regularly, on Monday I put my all my effort into closing off the Cultist Simulator Dancer DLC. Just give me one quick second here. I think my chat isn't properly set up, so I know it makes the audio go away. I'll have that remedied in just a moment. But yeah, so I didn't get a chance to stream the game on the weekend like I was planning, and on Tuesday I was going to do a Steam stream. So I decided that I'd go through to the dancer end, and I was going to do my best not to sort of cheat my way to it. I had to use the console a couple of times, mostly to fix some of the mistakes I was making, because I kept going longer and longer, and while I knew I would probably go over time, that turned into an 8-hour stream. Hey, Galva850. I'm sorry I'm not doing Cultist Simulator. That's normally something that I do on Wednesdays, but I'm of course explaining the circumstances under which I am streaming Mass Effect. So after that 8-hour broadcast to complete the dancer, which was very enjoyable, I just maybe wish that I had distributed the time a little bit better. I then proceeded to stream the new Apostle Legacy from 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 10 o'clock, which is another 8-hour stream. And I havered for quite some time about doing another Cultist Simulator stream tonight, because that is my normal dedicated Cultist Simulator night. And I'm actually really looking forward to seeing more of the Apostle Legacy. So I was leaning towards doing another session of Cultist Simulator, and the reason why I'm in Mass Effect right now is twofold. Number one, I've been putting off a blog for probably about 2 weeks now. Started writing it, had a very clear idea of what I wanted to do, and the fact of the matter is that sort of life events and streaming and all of that have gotten in the way. And I don't like this feature. When do this Cultist streams happen? Normally Wednesdays, but tonight I'm doing something a little bit different, Varnock. So I apologize for that if Mass Effect isn't your thing. So it would definitely normally be today, but I'm going to be I'm shirking this time around because I spent 8 hours on Cultist Simulator Monday in addition to Tuesday. And one of the reasons I wanted to try and do Cultist Simulator tonight was, in fact, because I know a lot of people followed for that, and I really did want to. I really did want to give people what they wanted. So I wanted to get some writing done, and I've been unhappy with the fact that I've not been following through on my writing, and so I decided tonight, before I streamed, that I would finish that article. And I think I rushed some things. I think there are some things that I could have done better, but I did get the article finished. It's actually available online right now. And then on top of that, because that took longer than I was expecting, I reflected a little bit on the idea of the Apostle Legacy and how I did the dancer. When I did the dancer stream, I actually got to an ending, and it was a dancer ending that I got to. It wasn't an ascension, but it was something that was introduced in that new patch. And that didn't happen with the Apostle Legacy. The Apostle Legacy is sort of in progress, and I fully intend to continue playing that session. But what that means is that the people who don't watch me on Steam now are basically 8 hours behind in terms of developments. And there's, let's face it, most people are not going to watch an 8-hour VOD, but I thought I would upload that. I did get a chance to get the Steam stream recorded, so that should be going up on YouTube in the next day or two. And I figured it's sort of fair to at least let people to have maybe a bit of a chance to catch up if they want to. I'll still answer questions at the beginning and all of that, but essentially what I'm doing here is I'm giving people the option to be able to bring themselves up to speed if they want to see the full playthrough. and then we can jump into Cultist Simulator next Wednesday at the latest. But Captain Shield, thank you very much for that host. Next Wednesday at the latest, but actually it's almost certainly going to be next Wednesday because Global Game Jam happens this weekend. So unless I do it Friday, I don't have any other days. So for all of you who came here to watch me for Cultist Simulator, I am sorry. I really did think about it, and largely because I'm getting a later start for tonight, and because I do want to give people a chance to get up to speed who couldn't make it to the Steam stream, I am going to be playing the other narrative game that I have in my collection. And before I completely bore everyone to death, let's jump back into the story of Captain Shepard. I will also add to, I fully intend to make good on my commitment to do a few more vodcasts. So there was the Thursday evening sort of more relaxed recorded broadcast that I was doing. I think Cultist Simulator is a great choice for that sort of thing. So we'll have lots, and I mean, this game has lots of opportunities for reading as well. So in between some of the missions, I'll be sure to get some codices read. So this game is sort of I don't know, my halfway point with everyone, I suppose. But yeah, that's my justification. Please do feel free to let me know if you're disappointed in the chat, because it is good to know how many people are like Cultist or Go Home viewers. I don't necessarily think I'll pander, but I will do my best to make sure that people's tastes are respected. I need to think a little bit about what missions we're on. I know we finished Tuchanka. Mad King Brutus, thank you so much for that subscription. We are getting back to a number that I have not seen on this channel for a very long time, so thank you for that. I am delighted that you are playing more Cultist Simulator. I don't know if you saw this cast on Monday, but we did 8 hours of The Dancer. What am I doing? I'm going to tool around space for a little bit. We did 8 hours of The Dancer on Monday, and if you didn't get a chance to see it on Tuesday, I got to do the new Apostle Legacies on Steam, which was wonderful. I had a great time doing it, and it brought a lot of attention to the broadcast, who I sort of feel like I'm sort of disappointing now because I'm not playing the slightly, I know the game people know me for. But I will be putting that video on YouTube, so I'll just keep in mind that's about 16 hours of Cultist Simulator that's going to be projected out to the world. I certainly wouldn't watch that, but some of you guys really like that sort of stuff. So you'll admit you've been hoping to see some Cultists since you usually play D&D on Wednesday, but you hardly count just because of that. Well, no, Varnock, that's actually it's good to know. It's actually really good to know about that sort of stuff. Because Wednesday was a purely arbitrary choice on my part, and if putting some diversity in terms of the days where I do Cultist Simulator will help people be able to see my stuff, it's actually something that I want to know about. So no, please don't, I'm really not that focused on whether or not it's a long-term viewer who who wants to see something like Cultist, or if it's a new viewer. Like, I think it's dumb when streamers take their existing audience for granted, but I also think it's unfair of somebody who's they just discovered the stream and they liked it, to suddenly be treated as some kind of like second-class citizen or something like that. So I will say there's two things that might be interesting to you, Varnock. I'm kind of locked into Mass Effect tonight. Obviously, all of my VODs I'll be putting on YouTube, but live isn't live is a different experience. One of the things that I'll be doing Cultist for, and you probably heard me talk about it, is on Thursdays I used to do Surviving Mars, and I still will do Surviving Mars as something where I take a very measured, slower pace inside of the game, or just in terms of like my tone. It's something where I don't goof off as much as I tend to do on some broadcasts. And I'm thinking that Cultist Simulator would be a great alternative for some of those broadcasts, and I tend to do those on days that I don't normally stream, so those kinds of streams will be on Thursdays. And then more importantly, I think what I'm going to wind up doing with Cultist Simulator after a little while is I'm going to start making that my main game. So maybe once I finish Mass Effect or something like that, I'll do multiple days of Cultist Simulator rather than just 2. So you'd be all over a Monday? Well, Monday's normally my Paradox Grand Strategy day, but again, I have been thinking about the schedules and such, so we'll see. Again, it's definitely something. It's definitely something that I'm open to changing if it means that it's more convenient for people. So I never, obviously it's impossible for me to credibly promise, oh yeah, you want Monday? I'll do it every Monday that you want. Just stay followed and be sure to drop a subscription to incentivize me. That's dumb. Like, I wouldn't be worthy of any kind of commitment like that. But just hearing little things from people like, hey, just so you know, when you stream on this day, I'm not able to experience it. A lot of these things just come up by chance, and if it just so happens that Wednesday's a bad day for people's cultist experience, I'm not married to it, and I don't have to be married to Grand Strategy days. In fact, arguably Grand Strategy might be better for a Friday because they're games that I usually get sucked into. And to answer your 16-hour question, Mad King Brutos, the Dancer conclusion is currently in my Twitch VODs, so you can see chat with that. But if you want a more permanent link, it is currently uploading to YouTube right now. And once that one's done uploading to YouTube, I'm going to bring it into. I'm going to bring the Steam stream, which will never have the chat recorded, unfortunately. That'll be added afterwards, and that'll be basically the conclusion of my previous playthrough, followed by the beginning of my next one. Definitely enjoyed chatting with you yesterday on the Steam stream, and being able to hang out live again would definitely be neat. Absolutely, Varnock. I mean, one of the lifeblood of my stream, like, obviously you get a chance to see me now in my normal environment. And I kind of think, like, I did this after the Dancer too. I streamed a game that wasn't Cultist Simulator right away. And I know I sort of pay a price when I do that, because sometimes people just want one game, but I sometimes sort of think I'm making a false sale if I give this impression that every time somebody comes in, they'll see Cultist Simulator. Obviously this is all the stuff that was running through my head on that, so I'll admit, like, obviously there's not a lot of people that watch me on an average stream, and that includes Cultist Simulator, by the way. So having people who are really pleasant to have in chat is a big bonus to me, because it means when I'm not 100% on a streaming day, that chat is usually able to be very pleasant to each other and make up that difference. So yeah, for consistency, I will definitely be doing some Cultist Simulator Wednesdays. And I realize that by doing so, I'm going to be cutting you off from participation due to your other commitments. But I think in the near future, what's going to be happening is I'm going to do multiple Cultist Simulator days a week, especially with the new content out. And I'm also going to be particularly well disposed to that when the drop-off after the new content is out. A lot of people are... you're under no obligation to be pleasant, Galva. The other big thing is I have a big incentive to do that when the take-up of Cultist Simulator drops off. So for instance, I'll just take a quick second here and go into the other tab. Like, when I took a look, no one should check Systems Twitter. Are you referring to the blog or just in general about when I'm doing stuff? Simulator. So, for instance, at the moment, I would be competing with Dan's Gaming and his 2.9 thousand viewers, Sly TQ with 57, Plaid with 55. Plaid is actually very nice in leaving me some comments on Twitter. So essentially, I would be in the bottom 3 for Cultist Simulator. And that's fine because numbers aren't everything. But in this particular case, one of the best things, in my opinion, about Cultist Simulator is being able to introduce people to the game. And so I love being able to do it when people maybe have fewer opportunities to see the game. And so I'll definitely be picking up some more Cultist Simulator when people are you know, when some of the shine of the new patch wears off. So. Oh God, sorry. Mad King Brutus just apparently threatened me online with a tweet. Very clever. Didn't you sign up for Twitter as a result of my constant badgering over that? It really is the best. I mean, like it's a kind of a wretched platform in some ways, but it really is a great way to let people know whether or not I'm doing something. Like, so I obviously a few hours ago I mentioned that I'm thinking of doing something other than Cultist Simulator. By the way, the whole theory about the numbers could be totally off, because it's entirely possible when someone like Dan's Gaming stops streaming Cultist Simulator, that all those people who are interested in the game will then turn around and want to see, you know, mine and Plaid's, you know, all those other streams. Like, again, there's sometimes a cost for me not playing the game immediately after a high-profile event like that. But again, like I for better or worse, we wound up with Mass Effect. One nice thing about Mass Effect is it gives me a chance in these mining moments to actually interact with people and like talk about stuff. So I do sort of like the interactivity that comes out of that. So maybe what would be nice now is, especially because there might be some people who are new to my stuff. There's definitely more people here than I'm accustomed to. I realize that you know, not everybody necessarily wants to participate in chat, but if you do participate in chat, we can make this sort of an unofficial AMA. Like, if you want to know anything about me or about my channel or about the stream yesterday, I'm happy to talk about it. Feel free to go up against Dan. I mean, the other thing that's like, I don't like the phrases that I necessarily used. I don't particularly see multiple people streaming the game at the same time as being rivalrous, because clearly my style towards games, I mean, even Mass Effect, right? Like, how many people do Mass Effect and spend this much time mining planets? You know, I do sort of think that people have different approaches to games. You know, my style is definitely not for everyone. And so having some diversity in streams can work in a streamer's benefit, just because if I happen to do Cultist Simulator in a way that, you know, attracts a certain type of viewer, that works for me, and that, you know, that obviously has nothing to do with the other people streaming the game. That has everything to do with the attitude that I bring to broadcasting. So I probably imply that I think of this in terms of competition a little bit more than I actually do, or definitely more than I should do. But at this point, I'm really just trying to justify not doing the game that I know everybody wants. I mean, there's technically no reason. I could in theory switch to Cultist Simulator at any point in the stream. It's just, I really don't like the idea of jumping in midway for people who haven't seen it. So this is Jacques Presents Road to 1 million Palladium. In truth, Sean Bean, the only reason I do this is because I like seeing that I've explored all of the systems, and I figure if I'm going to explore all the systems, I want to deplete all the planets. And I believe I gave you a photo of some delicious gas station coffee. Actually, it's not gas station. It's a convenience store. It's across the street from my work, but it's very inexpensive coffee. It's acceptable in taste. It is quite a lot of it for the price. And that was a good coffee. That was a rather cold day.
Probe launched.
I'm happy to hear that. Yeah, like obviously I'm kind of being unfair to Mass Effect. Like it's a good game. I would maybe normally read like the planet titles or that, but for things that are just purely me indulging myself on the scanning, oh damn it, I'm not paying attention. Obviously for the ones where I'm just being a little more indulgent, I resist the urge to read some of the side planets, but you thinking of having it framed? One thing I can talk about, so I did put that new blog out, and every time I put out a blog out, I'm kind of unhappy with it, and this one in particular because I know I rushed at the end, and I know the last blog that I did I sort of rushed at the end. And in one sense, I actually don't think that it's a blog that needs to be written. So, at the beginning of the year, Kirk McKeon of VG20, I think it's VG247, he basically wrote an article on sort of diversity and inessential elements inside of games. And this is largely in response to the fact that, people really, I think he's one of these guys who winds up, like, getting the attention of, like, the Reddit threads who really don't like, who really don't like the, quote, gaming journal. Like, I think he's on a list somewhere that he's one of the gaming journalists who, is too woke for his own good. And for his part, he is perfectly happy to frustrate people who do that. So essentially he wrote a reasonably, I don't necessarily think it was a provocative article, but it was one that basically sort of says, like, okay, so, you have a big problem with, say, women in Battlefield 5 was probably the sort of the prototypical example. And I really like Battlefield 5, right? So obviously it's one that's going to get my attention. There's like, here are some other things that are inessential to Battlefield 5, like, vehicles, textures, sound, and basically, I think the point of that one is mostly just to sort of say, it's like, why is it that this one very narrow part of the experience, you will allow that a soldier dies and comes back, to not break your immersion, but the idea of, women on the battlefield is beyond the pale. And I'll admit, like, for me, it is a question that I'm really curious about, because I don't think the historical argument about it is a very good one. But I don't see the same sort of anger over Fortnite, and Fortnite obviously has women characters. So it's a really tough one, and I do think, like, I have some theories about it. But anyways, so that was the article that he wrote. And I was thinking a little bit about these kinds of articles, and I'm sure to most people, especially online, because I think online I tend to take a contrary view to what I see, and usually what I see tends to be cases where I think the, quote unquote, the gamers are maybe overstating the case. So for instance, like I did the loot box article and things like that. So I probably just come off as like the biggest, soy drinking, sissy liberal in the world. And that might be true. I mean, I do think probably my background in economics leads me to be a little more liberal in things. So it's just sort of like, sure, let the market decide unless there's a failure, at which point people like me will study it and give you policy recommendations, which may or may not work. So that sort of, I think that kind of accounts for some of it. So, like, I'm sympathetic to it. Like, when Lottie from Cultist Simulator, Weather Factory, says, you know, playing Lara Croft was a particularly meaningful moment for her because it was, you know, a British woman like her, British girl like her, in a game, and she was able to play someone who was like her in a game. That was a special moment. And I like stories like that. And obviously it's one that doesn't fit well into a normal narrative because some people, you know, want to problematize Lara Croft or whatever. But in this case, here is a story of somebody who now works in games who talks about how that character and the fact that she was able to play a character that looked like her meant something about it. So I liked that quite a bit. And I was reflecting on myself and the fact that, you know, I am sort of predisposed to like articles like that because I do assign some value to other people's enjoyment of things. You know, like, there are things in games that annoy me a lot, but I sort of understand that people do enjoy, you know, people do enjoy them, and that things that I find annoying don't always... Oh! Apparently I gotta go back to Janka, sorry about that. You know, again, I'm predisposed towards it, I think basically because I'm constituted such that it's like, well, you know, I'm indifferent or maybe even slightly annoyed by this, but it seems to make people rather happy, so good on them. You know, that's kind of the way that I tend to engage with that sort of thing. But that similar reasoning also says that I need to believe people when they say they're really bothered by those elements. That if they're, you know, like if somebody says the presence of women in Battlefield 5 is a deal breaker for me, or, you know, pandering to special interest groups or whatever is enough to diminish my enjoyment of the game, that's something that I at least need to take somebody at their word on until I'm given evidence to the contrary. So what I wanted to try and do was articulate why I think diversity in games, and that's defined both through the stories, the characters, and the platforms on games. So the idea that obviously what somebody might consider a core gamer is... What does the poster for Battlefield 5 look like? Science fiction? Which poster are you talking about? I didn't really get that impression of it, but... But basically, the kind of where I wanted to go with all of it was to say, it's like, okay, so if I want to give an amoral, apolitical reason why I think diversity is good for gaming, what is the case that I would make? And that's basically what the article's about. I gotta go to the Chief Scout, not Rex. The big one that I sort of looked at is that I think even if you didn't see a change in the composition of the people making games, you will see greater representation in game titles because there's a bigger market out there of people who will potentially want to buy games who, you know, basically on the margins, they're looking for stories that represent them, or at least have an option of representing them. Obviously, in the case of Mass Effect, you can play lots of different types of Shepards. And in the case of AAA, if you think about it, the nominal price of the games has stayed constant for a really long time, but the budgets for these games have been increasing. Well, there's two orange and teal ones, Sean. I mean, I think we might just have a difference of opinion on it. I thought it's kind of standard Battlefield colors. I didn't really find it all that science fiction-y, but I do find it kind of more of a throwback to like the usual motif that they give for like Battlefield 4 and such. But yeah, I'll put the pin on this really quick because I know you guys are here for Mass Effect and that. But basically, the idea here is that because budgets for games are getting bigger and price increases really aren't an option for the bleeding edge of gaming right now, it raises the question, why are these why are these companies able to remain profitable? And they are, like, the biggest companies are largely increasing their profits year over year. The individual year obviously will have some fluctuation, but especially in terms of EA, like, they've been growing at a pretty big rate. And if you have to constrain everything else, because obviously people don't like subscriptions or loot boxes or microtransactions and all of that, and there's only so much you can get out of it, and there's clearly a price that some of these companies pay for implementing these systems. The only other thing that you can do is to make more people, well, not make, but get more people to buy your game at a price that costs less than acquiring them. And that means reaching out to people who aren't normally being marketed to. The core gamer is obviously really heavily marketed to already, and it's not clear that spending another $1 million on an ad campaign is going to make people buy your game anymore. And of course, your competitor has the exact same option available to them. And so in one sense, I think that this is a response to commercial pressure, which is that in order to be able to make these bigger games with a larger scope and not to implement even more aggressive monetization strategies, basically drag out more from an individual player, they need to make games that will appeal to a broader audience. And in this particular case, because the graphical fidelity is going up, it's really not good enough to just have a blob anymore. Like, a blob can mean anything, but now that, even at this level, right, it's pretty clear which are boys and which are girls and skin colors and such. So I think in one sense, basically, the diversity in gaming, and at least in terms of subjects and all of that, is reflecting the fact that there are more gamers and there are more people interested in gaming because the stories speak to them. And then on top of that, of course, there are more people making games, and it's inevitable that these people will be telling stories that mean something to them. The diversity in the supply side is being reflected in the product that's being brought out. And the reason that's a benefit to gamers is that even, like, so, obviously I'm playing Lady Shepherd because people told me that that's apparently the better voice acting. I don't really have an opinion one way or the other about it. And I do see your message, Mad King Bruno, so I'm just desperately trying to get to the end of the train of thought. The idea here is that, like, I'm essentially just given an option, right? And some of the games might push a little too hard in a direction that isn't for me. That's fine. I still have the option of just not playing that game and playing something else. But I think the benefit to me is the fact that games, because they don't cost more, because more people are buying them and they're able to push the envelope without necessarily, costing me individually, is an unseen benefit that comes from diversity both in the player base as well as the types of games that are being made. And I think there's still a place for more focused stories. So if you're really bothered by, so for instance, BattleTech had a third gender option, and it really bothered some people. If that's sort of the last straw, and you will not play a game as a result of that, I think what that basically just means is that taste is becoming increasingly niche. But we know that niche tastes have been taken care of by independent games. And so I think what people maybe, and this has always been true, what people associate as mainstream in a particular period sort of starts moving more to the margins as they don't adapt to the, the current trend, let's say. But in this case, it doesn't necessarily mean that the games are any worse. It just means that somebody who's maybe used to thinking of themselves as like a AAA player might instead actually have a subset of games that are being produced by studios that are making very high quality independent products. And obviously in that case, that's a way that everybody can be a little bit happier. Hopefully, at least. The last one I wanted to cover was mobile gaming, because there's really this perception that mobile gaming is a scourge on gaming. And I promise you this will be the last thing that I talk about. The last thing that I'll say about it is mobile gaming has this subtle influence that is really important right now, and I can actually ignore. I can actually ignore even all the free-to-play stuff that you see on the 2018 chart and reduce it down to Fortnite, because, yep, I saw those reviews, Galva850. Basically, one of the most interesting stories to me about Fortnite is that Don Mustard, the creative lead on it and creative lead at Epic, founded Chair, which was basically a mobile studio. They did a couple of Xbox Live games, but they're best known for the Infinity Blade series for iOS. And if you take a look at Fortnite, it's not just that it's available on mobile, but it's got the free-to-play structure, it's got the microtransactions. A lot of the elements that make that game successful, both in terms of player base and the revenue that it's generating, are mobile conventions. Now, I don't particularly like Fortnite. I've played one game of the Battle Royale. I played a couple games of the base building game when it was in closed alpha. I couldn't stream it because that was one of the conditions of participating. It wasn't quite my thing. But as somebody who will play a game that is made in the Unreal Engine in the future, I know that the Unreal Engine Asset Store now has, I think, 88% of the revenues for asset creators goes to them. And I believe Epic only takes a 12% share now, as opposed to Unity, where I think it's the traditional 70-30. Epic has unleashed the Epic Game Store, and even if you don't take advantage of the free games that are available on it, they have introduced more aggressive distribution royalty agreements compared to Steam. And there are clearly other platforms that are competing. Discord has introduced their 10% revenue share. Steam has obviously shifted their percentages, and everybody's sort of paying attention to what Epic's doing. So in this particular case, the revenues that Fortnite has brought in, this product which really is driven by a team that has a lot of experience in mobile and obviously owes a lot of its success and player base to its mobile implementation, has resulted in a number of improvements to the engines, the storefronts, and just the general dynamics of the industry. And of course, this is ignoring the fact that there's plenty of very good free-to-play and mobile games out there. Like, I'm sort of taking it as a given unfairly that mobile gaming is not as good, and that's just simply not true. So the biggest thing that it comes down to, the argument for diversity in gaming is actually one that doesn't require a moral argument for it. It's just simply one where it's good business sense. The games are cheaper, there's more variety, and even if like mobile gaming sucks completely, enough innovation happens inside of it that the profits, the revenues, and just the techniques eventually get picked up by somebody who's really smart at making PC games, and it gets translated into the games that we play now. So anyways, that was kind of what I wanted to try and do in the article. It was marginally successful, but that was what made me so late. Yeah, I didn't understand it myself, Galva, but...
We've got him at the tent. Doesn't remember much beyond getting tortured, but he remembers you. Said you yelled at him until he got his hump out of that basin back here. You've got a quad, human. Thanks for saving my scout. Saves me having to train another one.
You see a lot of action around here?
Enough. Farron here and there, and snakes in any of the water safe enough to drink. Rex has made ceasefire agreements with some of the clans, but I still have to patrol, keep them honest.
I actually think I've already
Thanks for the
read all of
information.
that. Okay.
Don't know about the rest of your species.
Eyes straight ahead.
Let me just take a quick look at my journal again and see. I do like the Project Firewalker ones, but I think they're all on the right-hand side. The Han Kedar facility on Chapek. I'll maybe see if we can do that one. Otherwise, we'll jump straight into Samara's story mission.
Give me a reason.
Hey, Johnny, how you doing? I gave the crashing disappointment to everyone who was expecting Cultist Simulator today. And it's just because I did 16 hours of that game, and I got a late start. Oh yeah, I didn't tell you, a new blog is up. So the people who I like sharing blog stuff with are the Eyes of Sin and Johnny Big Time. They don't always look at an early article, but I always like getting their feedback. So if you guys want to take a look at it, do feel free to give me comments on it. I'll try to be as even-handed as I can. And Mad King Brutos, I didn't miss your message. I will do your best to attend streams next week, but with the release of Kingdom Hearts 3 on the 29th, you've been waiting for this for 13 years. You might be busy. That is not a problem at all. I don't take attendance. I really appreciate people who come here, especially when I'm playing the stuff that isn't necessarily what people had in mind. And there's a thing that League of Legends used to say, the people at Riot. that basically their competition wasn't other games. That their competition was people's other hobbies. Because Red Dead Redemption 2 might come out or something like that. And sure, there's a lot of gameplay in that. And from everything I hear, it's a really cool game, and it's a lot of fun, and just everything about it is impressive. But there's a finite, there's sort of a finite amount of gameplay that you're going to get out of that, or Wolfenstein, or any of these things here. And so the way that they see it is that, sure, there might be ups and downs of a player base when a big release comes out, but what they need to worry about is not so much somebody's individual departure from that one game for a period, or for that one game and that one time. But what they need to worry about is that thing that they always keep coming back to. Like, if you take up model trains and that becomes your life, then you're not going to spend that time in League. And actually, Sean Bean, I was wondering if somebody would bring up that article. Sean Bean has it absolutely right. Netflix is not worried about HBO. Netflix is worried about Fortnite, because if you're spending the time playing Fortnite, you are not watching Netflix. It's a very similar attitude. So I think streaming's a little bit like that. There's some people who've left and they haven't come back, and that's sad, but that's their choice, and I respect it. But when it comes to streaming, like, gaming's a hobby. Like, I'm surprised at the number of people who like watching me who don't play games. They like, they just like, they like watching games and like living vicariously through them. I'm surprised, because I really do enjoy playing games, and I find it unusual to play games. But again, this comes back to the diversity thing, right? Like, my preference for playing games, if everybody shares my game playing preference, then there is no place for me as a streamer. It is the fact that you people have tastes other than mine that allow me to have this channel in the first place. So yeah, it's nice to have people who, I think the thing that I like, it's one thing that I actually like the most, is that somebody who has gone off to do something else for a while, but thinks enough of the channel that they come back. There's something really special about that, and I wish I was a better streamer to do more of it for people. But anyways, that's me being all warm and fuzzy for a little bit. How is everybody doing tonight? Because I got to say hi to Isis, and I got to say hi to Johnny Big Time, but how is everybody doing? I'm going to read a little bit about Omega, and then we're going to jump right into a story mission. Built in the mined-out husk of a metallic asteroid, Omega has been a haven for criminals, terrorists, and malcontents for thousands of years. At times, the station has lain idle and abandoned for centuries, only to be reactivated by a new group of outlaws seeking a fresh start. The space station's original elegant design has given way to haphazard expansion by scrabbling factions of every species. There's no central government or unifying authority on Omega, and nobody can recall a time that there ever was one. Population 7.8 million, orbital distance 2.42 AU, orbital period 6.9 Earth years, orbital length 44.7 kilometers. As an aside, I won't tab out of the game because it'll take care of the audio, but because I do have a few more people watching than I'm accustomed to, I do want to take a quick minute and shout out a couple of really wonderful people who are in chat right now. The Eyes of Sin 92 doesn't stream as often as she used to, but she's the one who's responsible for my emotes. And she did a really wonderful job of them, particularly the one that you get access to when you have your base level sub, the System 1 HMM. So, when I'm talking about mobile games, my experience with mobile games has been really positive. One of the things I really loved watching her play was Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery, which is actually a Canadian game, Capybara Games. And she did a great job of it. It's
Count on Omega is too high for me to pinpoint an Ardat Yakshi's location. However, given the reputation of Ardat Yakshi among the Asari, Arya T'Loak may have tracked her movements.
all right.
Some of this reminds me of life on the flotilla. Cramped and crowded with no real privacy. And the people don't work together toward a common goal. There's no sense of family here. Just fear.
I always like these little asides.
Come on, let me in. Ari's expecting me.
But Eyes of Sin is somebody who I'm very fond of on Twitch, and she does a lot of modding for other broadcasters. So it definitely makes me happy to talk about some of the work that she does for other people. And then on top of that, we have got the legendary Johnny Big Time. If you guys like a little bit more action in your streams, if you like somebody who has got a tremendous charisma and just an ability to have the right thing to say at every moment, he has got a pitch-perfect sense of comedic timing. By the way, a little fan service here for anybody who cares to look at the far left and right of the screen. Johnny Big Time has just he's able to kind of keep the action going on his stream in a way that I can't. He's really good at that. But on top of that, he's just a really charismatic, really friendly guy. He's currently doing the Witcher series. He's currently in the middle of Witcher 2. But he does cut out and do, I think on his Fridays or Mondays. But he does do some other games. He's been playing Ring of Elysium later. He's actually the only person I can stand to watch some Battle Royale games with. So I will do the proper SO command in a little bit for him. But Johnny's actually one of the reasons why I keep going back to Mass Effect, because he's a big fan of the series, and I like making Johnny happy. I also like making...
What do you need?
I also like making other people happy in chat, but Johnny's love of the Krogan is a very easy one to appeal to.
An Asari fugitive is hiding out here. She's an Ardat Yakshi. We need to find her.
I knew it. Nothing leaves a body quite so empty as an Ardat Yakshi does.
You haven't done anything about it?
Why would I? She hasn't tried to seduce me. Her last victim was a young girl. Pretty thing. Lived in the tenements near here. That's where I'd start looking.
Thanks for the help.
Good luck finding her. Better luck catching her.
One thing I was going to say, I think Afterlife was one of the first places I went into when I was playing, when I first played this game. And again, this was the one after a long hiatus from gaming. And I was just really struck that an environment could look like this. Like, I mean, it's a little bit like some clubs in Vancouver. Not like directly, but like it's enough that it's like, oh wow, this is kind of like, yeah, like this is, I didn't know games looked like this. Although my favorite moment is still... I just love the fact that it cuts to his face when you just silently go up to the bar and walk away. I don't know if anybody else finds that amusing, but... Keep in mind, this is also the stream where I, in Walking Dead 1, probably had Lee go up and do the cycle of, "Hey Ben, see ya," about 20 times. Matt King Bruto says, as much as you love your system, I know my backseat gamer is going to try and come out during this loyalty mission, so you'll go to your weekly grocery shop to save the both of us. Totally fair, Mad King Brutus. If you want, of course, you can always go and do the VOD later, if you can't help yourself. But I trust your
This
judgment.
should come in handy.
Have a good one, and hope I get a chance to see you again. If not, enjoy Kingdom Hearts 3. Oh, you know what? This... I'm pretty sure this isn't the apartment. There is also that mad prophet who keeps calling us unclean, so...
Is that Shepard? Shepard's supposed to be dead. Greetings. I was hoping you'd come by. I'm Ish, and this is Cell. You look like a good person to know.
You need something?
Well, if you'd be so kind, I hoped you might consider a proposition. I need skilled, trustworthy people to take care of a little business for me. Nothing illegal, of course, but it's paying work.
What kind of business do you do?
Important business. So important that, with your help, we can change Omega.
What do you mean, we can change Omega?
Well, I didn't want to say anything, but Certain people here have business deals with people throughout the galaxy. If we were to have information involving those deals, we could make some ripples around here. That's all I'll say.
I'm listening.
I'm in the information business, specifically the buying and selling of privileged material. It's nothing illicit. I just need someone to pick up packages in certain locations and bring them to me here.
What's your angle?
No angle. I'm a simple businessman. What do you say?
I can do that.
My contacts use specific drop points. I need you to look outside Merib's shop on the Citadel and inside Eternity on Ilium. Look around for anything that might hold a data package and bring those packages to me. Good luck, my friends.
I don't know if I'll actually do this mission, but I'm giving myself the option.
End is not. Humans are a blight on galactic purity.
Tell me more how we're blight.
You are a blight. You. And you, human. And you.
Alright, I've gotten enough abuse now. I don't remember which of the apartments I need to worry about.
I've been investigating. This is the mother of the last victim. Speak to her. I will listen.
Are you here about my daughter? My nephew died a week ago and no one seems to care. The medics said it was a brain hemorrhage, but that's not true. It was murder. Someone killed my nephew, my baby.
I think she was murdered too, and I'm looking for her killer.
Oh, thank you. It's so hard when no one believes you. I'm all alone now. Are you one of Aria's people?
I'm here to help. Does it matter who sent me?
No one else on this hellhole station gives a damn that my nephew is dead. If you can do something about it, I'll help you however I can.
Did your daughter have a lot of friends?
Not a lot, no. She was shy. Spent most of her time off making her sculptures, not hanging out with friends. Something did change in the last few weeks, though. She started talking about an Asari. Morinth.
I see.
I didn't like her. She kept dragging Neff out to clubs, and I'm pretty sure she gave my daughter drugs.
What kind of a person was this Morinth?
I never met her. But Neff talked about her like she was a queen. You'd swear there was no one else alive when she talked about Morinth.
That sounds familiar.
Samara, does Morinth control her victims with drugs?
She controls them through sheer will. The drugs are just a lifestyle. She loves the club, loves the base. She's a hedonist.
So this Morinth did hurt my daughter? Is she the one that...
I will bring justice to the one that did this.
Just remember, folks, if you like bass, you're a hedonist.
We swear to you, Neff will rest easy soon.
I hope so. I hope so. My baby.
Did Neff hang out anywhere in particular?
She was always quiet working here at home. Then, a few weeks ago, she started going out all the time to the VIP area of that club down the street. I think you need a password or something to get in there. The change was so sudden. She just seemed tired and distracted when she wasn't around Morinth.
Have a good one, Brutus.
What kind of a girl was your daughter?
My nephew had a fire inside her. She was shy, but she was creative and driven and the best girl a mother could hope for.
She was creative. How so?
She was a sculptor. Several galleries were interested in her. Said her work was fresh.
Do you mind if I examine Neff's room?
I didn't want to disturb anything. Her clothes, her art, her sculptures, everything is the way she left it. The way it will always be. My baby is gone. She's gone. Thank you. I'm sorry. I just miss her so much.
It's okay. We've all suffered loss.
I know what it means to lose a daughter. I will avenge her.
Thank you. Please, if it helps you find her killer, look through her things.
We will be respectful.
I'll examine her things.
Alright, how jump on bed? What is the jump on bed button?
Neff,
I'm sending you this hologram by the Elcor artist Forta. His work is sublime, but don't stare at it too long or you may go mad.
A man from some gallery offered me 4 years' salary for it, but I'd never part with it.
Read the newest entry.
Cycle 42, Orbit 67. She's going to take me to her apartment tonight. Whatever happens, I want to be with her forever. She can sell my pieces. We can live somewhere glamorous, like the women in Vanya that Vid Morinth likes. How did this happen to me? I'm just dumb trash from Omega.
Read the middle entry.
Cycle 36, Orbit 671. Am I a freak? Morinth is a girl like me, and she's definitely not human. Just when we dance and the helix is flowing through me, the way she looks at me with a hunger, a longing, no one's ever looked at me like that. We kissed tonight.
Read the oldest entry.
Hey, diary, Cycle 34, Orbit 671. There's a lot to talk about. I dropped Jarut's name, and they let me into the VIP room at Afterlife. I'm sure everyone was staring at me. Then the most beautiful Asari starts dancing near me. She moves like water, form and volume, but shifting, changing. I'm in a trance. Then I'm dancing with her. Later, we went for skewers, and I'm supposed to see her again tomorrow.
See, one of the things that I think works really well, if you compare this to the other diaries that you see inside of this game.
This is Morinth's work. She's attracted to artists and creators. Someone with a spark, slightly isolated from their peers. She impresses with sophistication and sex appeal. Then she strikes. The hunt interests her as much as the conquest.
Anyone who successfully hunted sapient beings for 400 years warrants caution.
Morinth speaks to you on many levels. Her body tells yours that she'll bring unimaginable ecstasy. Her scent evokes emotions long hidden. Her eyes promise you things you were always scared to ask of another. Her voice whispers to you after she is done speaking.
She sounds more like a highly evolved killer than a genetic defective.
The condition has been present since my people huddled around fires at night. Perhaps it is symbiotic rather than a defect. Storming her den would be a mistake. She will have 100 escape routes planned. She will go to ground and disappear for 50 years or more. This is the closest I've ever been.
So we have to lure her out.
Exactly. Shepard, you read my mind. Afterlife's VIP section seems her preferred hunting ground. You must go there alone and unarmed.
She'll come after me.
You can draw Morinth out. She'll certainly flee if she catches sight of me, but she won't be able to resist you. You are an artist on the battlefield. You have the vital spark that attracts her. Your power will draw her in.
Samara clearly has not seen me fight in this game.
I'm walking into this place with no gun and no backup.
I will be in the shadows watching, Shepard. You will never be alone. This I swear. But you cannot barge in with guns and allies. Morinth is far too cagey. She'd simply disappear. This is a subtle, delicate act. Trust me.
Time's wasting. Let's get over there.
Meet me in the foyer of the VIP section, and we will work out the details. Soon there will be justice.
So I think one of the things that really made the Holo Journal work for me, so obviously not a lot of the journals or the diaries have associated videos. I believe we've seen a couple that do have video though. But I think the thing that really makes that one work so well is the fact that they don't just let it play, they actually cut, and some of the camera movement is just sort of to, create the movement you normally expect in those kinds of cinematics. Don't know why I didn't get that. Expensive, but
valuable.
But yeah, I think one of the things that really makes that work the best.
Big selection of illegal shit. You could thrive here if you're strong and ruthless. I like it.
So the fact that they, in terms of the delivery of the dialogue, they also cut the...
What do you want?
I'd like to join the party.
This really isn't your kind of place. Afterlife's main floor has lots of drinks and great music.
All right then. But yeah, so the fact that in addition to the voice acting, and I mean, obviously they do spend a little bit more effort on the visuals and they display it. But there is editing that's used and they make particular decisions to cut at moments for effect. Obviously some of the other dialogue uses it, but in this particular case, because you are trying to connect with the victim of the crime, and it's not somebody you ever meet inside the game, one of the ways that they make that more impactful than just any other diary that you read is to actually treat that dialogue as sort of an exchange that you would have with any other character inside the game. I don't know, I found it pretty effective. In some ways, it's a little bit like the problem I run into when I'm monologuing on something. If I spend too much time babbling on, then the game sort of stalls out, and I can't remember this. I don't think this is VIP, but how you doing, the Hidden Citizen? But yeah, basically, if when I'm monologuing on something and we want to have the game sort of move on, sometimes I just wind up like running circles around like this, waiting for waiting for me to finish my point and then moving on. So it's a kind of comparable problem if you have like a diary that you need to just stand around and listen to, otherwise it gets overridden by something else in the game. Can I do my patented shepherd dance here? Yep, here we go. Surely no Asari predator will ever be able to resist these moves. I will admit though, like for some of the other characters though, I really like the dance animations. I don't know if that's particularly hard to do, but I think they sell it well. Maybe I'm just easily pleased. Yeah. Maybe I do need to order a drink.
If you can't hold your liquor, you shouldn't drink. What's going on here?
You ought to be all right. Just take her easy. Looks like you broke the first rule of Omega. Don't order a drink at Afterlife if you're human.
That bartender tried to poison me?
Tried is the word. As far as I know, you're the first human to survive it. Me and my friend Jake went there to celebrate our new shipping business. He got real drunk. And an hour later, he was puking blood.
Humans aren't welcome at Afterlife?
It's just that one Batarian bartender. He's got a stick up his ass about a bunch of Batarians that died a while back. No one does a thing about it, though. Humans ain't exactly held in high regard around here.
I think I'll go give that bartender a taste of his own medicine.
He won't be expecting you. That's for sure. Give that Batarian bastard what he deserves.
What do you want?
I don't want anything at all.
Nope,
Check out
wrong line.
Afterlife's main floor. What do you want?
Someone told me the rest of Afterlife's nothing compared to this place.
Sounds like a smart person. Who was it?
Jarut.
Go on in. Word to the wise. Start a fight, we'll hurt you. Someone attacks you, it's okay to defend yourself.
Oh, interesting.
You must go in alone. Morinth will be watching. Like any predator, she is cautious. You must pique her interest enough that she will approach you. When you are face to face, subtly encourage her to invite you to her apartment. I'll follow discreetly, and when you are alone, I'll spring the trap. Know this, until I get there, you are in great peril. She will be planning to inflict horrors on you. If you are not careful, you will want her to.
How can I spark her interest when I'm not even talking to her?
Courage or suicidal bravery could attract her. Hurt someone in defense and she will be excited. But pick a fight and she'll be bored. Show skill at working smoothly through a nightclub crowd. She will be intrigued. She'll want you the moment she sees you. The rest is just a matter of overpowering her caution.
For the record, this is why I'm okay playing like characters of all types, because in real life I would utterly fail this mission.
How do I convince her to take me home?
She admires strength, directness, and vigor. Modesty, chivalry, or meekness frustrate and bore her.
Milady.
Violence excites her. You've killed Shepard. She'll like that.
Getting her alone and falling under her sway. That'll require careful timing.
I will be near, and I will come for you, Shepard. Trust me, as I trust and honor you.
Okay. What other things have we learned about Morinth that can help us here?
According to Neff's journal, Morinth likes dancing while on a drug called Halax. Neff's journal mentioned a vid called Vayenya. It seemed to have something to do with glamorous women. Morinth sent Neff a note saying she likes the Elcor artist Forta. Well, Shepard, that's everything we know.
Let's get started.
Hey, Morinth, why don't you have a seat over
We
there?
only get one chance at this. Any mistake and Morinth will disappear. If you're the least bit unsure, come talk to me. I will wait here. And Shepard, thank you. I do not share this burden easily, and you...
God, I love the lighting
someone
on her
I
in
can
this.
imagine sharing it with.
Hey, do you know where to get tickets for Expel 10? I heard this amazing Asari say they were her favorite band. I just want whatever she wants. I gotta find tickets. Expel 10 is playing tomorrow.
What kind of music do they play?
They're a sensory band. Like, they crawl into you and make you feel things. And this Asari digs them like you wouldn't believe. I could score way out of my league, you know? You gotta help me.
She sounds amazing. Is she here?
She was here a couple of days ago talking about the band. She's here a lot. When she comes back, I'm gonna have tickets.
I don't have any tickets.
If you score some, I got some creds for you.
Come on, baby. I can pay. I'm a good tipper, too. Don't be like that. I got creds. We'll go back to my place. I got simple tastes.
Back off, asshole. I'm a dancer, not a hooker.
You got a mouth on you. I'll enjoy watching you use it.
The lady asked you to step away.
You want in on this transaction? Hey, I don't care if it's you or this bitch. I just like good times.
Good times are over.
Thanks for that. Security was asleep.
Oh, that off-camera sound work was fantastic.
Hey. Hey! I'll dance next to you. If you want to think we're dancing together, go ahead.
I do want to think that. You know anyone interesting?
Lots of money on display here tonight. Good cred hunting tonight. We'll hit him in the alley. As long as it isn't one of Arya's people, we're good. We gotta get enough creds to keep ink off our backs. Hey, what are you looking at?
I want you gone from here.
Hey, we gotta pay the man. We work for Hink. You hear that? So, what do you think of us now?
How about I give you enough creds for your boss, then you leave and stay gone. No one gets hurt.
No, that's the wrong...
Works for me. Let's go.
My name is Morin. I've been watching you. You're the most interesting person in this place. I've got a booth over here in the shadows. Why don't you come sit with me? Some nights I come here and there's no one interesting to talk to. Some nights, there's just one person. Tonight it's you. Why is that?
I know what I like.
Do you?
Justicars.
Do you know anything about art?
It speaks to the darkest places in me. What about you?
Do you know the artist Forta?
I didn't think anyone around here knew him. He's sublime. Art comes in many varieties. I've seen vids that were more powerful than a sculpture sitting in a gallery.
Do you know Vaenya?
My favorite. The two actresses on it are so glamorous.
I'll have to watch it.
Maybe we could do that together.
What do you think of the music here?
Dark rhythms, violent pulses. It stirs something primitive in me. What about you?
I'm curious about a band called Expel 10.
They get in my head and tear it to pieces. They're in concert soon. Maybe we should go together. You can lose yourself in the music here. There are ways to enhance that. You know?
What do you think of Hallex?
It slithers through my soul. Seems like we share some interests.
Can't remember the travel one.
I've traveled all over the galaxy.
It changes you, doesn't it?
I'm not changed by the places I go. They're changed by me.
That's impressive. When I travel, I find myself drawn to dark, dangerous places.
Violent places?
Violence is the surest expression of power.
Violence is a means to an end. Power is that end.
Do you want to get out of here? My apartment is nearby and I want you alone.
Let me out!
A gift from a suitor. The statue's got more personality than he did. Still, he impressed me enough that he finally got what he wanted. It didn't end the way he hoped. I love any game where your opponent can believe he is about to win, just before you kill him.
That's a nice little setup.
I was into dueling for a while. I love the moment you see it in your opponent's eyes. He knows you're better, and he's going to die.
Well, you know, there's exceptions for everything, Hidden Citizen.
Have a Hallex if you want. But wouldn't you rather have all your senses be clear and sharp right now? I certainly do. I love clubs. People, movement, heat. I can still hear the bass like the drums of a great hunt out for your blood. But here, It's muted, and you're safe. Is that what you want, Shepard?
People feel safest right before they die.
It's true. We're never safe. I've never understood the fascination with safety. Some of us choose differently. Independence over submission? I think we share that, you and I.
We've both killed many times, but that's where the similarities end.
Why do you say that I've killed? What do you know? Let's stop playing games. Look into my eyes and tell me you want me. Tell me you'd kill for me. Anything I want.
Don't count on it.
But you... Who are you? Oh no. I see what's going on. The bitch herself found a little helper. Marin! Mother. Do not call me that! I can't choose to stop being your daughter, Mother. You made your choice long ago. What choice? My only crime was being born with the gifts you gave me. Enough, Morin! I am the genetic destiny of the Asari, but they are not ready to reveal this. So I must die. You are a disease to be purged. Nothing more. I'm as strong as she is. Let me join you. I am already sworn to help you, Shepard. Let us finish this.
Oh, damn, I didn't know you got a choice here.
End of the line, Morinth.
And they call me a monster. Find peace in the embrace of the goddess. I am ready to leave this place and get on with my life. Are you ready to go as well?
Do you want to talk about what happened?
Shepard, what do you think I will say? What can I say? I just killed the bravest and smartest of my daughters. There are no words. I will try another time. For now, show mercy on a broken old warrior and let us leave.
Let's go.
Wow, so... the ending to that one, that was neat. Like, I did not realize that Morinth was an option. I'm assuming it's only if you get through the entire dialogue, because I'm assuming if she's just about to kill, like if she has you in her power and you're about to die, then Samara's going to come in and save you, which is what happened when I first played. But it's funny, actually. So the ending was probably the least interesting to me, just because I thought, this obviously is a well-written game, but I really liked the dialogue in that one, particularly the final dialogue between Morinth and Shepard, because obviously it's really heavily laden. The only thing that I actually don't know how I would fix this, but I don't know why somebody would ever want to pick Morinth. Because you have an entire mission setting up Samara, and she gives you this big this big reason about why she needs to do what she needs to do. And I'm not entirely convinced, I'm the genetic future of the Asari is quite enough justification for, oh, here's a character I spent a lot of time with, and I have a really clear understanding of why she's doing what she's doing. And here's this other person, and I'm going to pick the dialogue option for... I mean, I'm assuming you wind up getting both, it's equivalent one way or the other. The only thing I kind of feel like it would have been nicer to have a bit more of a reason to potentially choose Morinth, because I really didn't feel like there was I really feel like there was an option there. But I am going to say it again just for now. I really want to go back to Afterlife and have that moment of the Turian who won't take no for an answer, just because I really loved the camera pans off, whoosh, 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 I'm easily amused. All right, level up. 750 experience gained. Squad level 23. Squad points gained. 1. Mission summary. Samara has dealt with the Ardat Yakshi. She remains loyal to Shepard personally. Loyalty of the Justicar is beyond question, given the apparent bonds of oath rendered to Shepard better than hoped. Cerberus activities will not be affected further by presence of Shepard's team. Relieved to have Justicar's mission completed. Unfortunately, body of Ardat Yakshi could not be taken for study. Genetic abnormality would have been useful. Subject's expertise would have made her a valuable team member if sociopathic tendencies were mitigated. Samara gets a new outfit. New power. Damages target. Okay, it's just standard Reeve. New outfit. Assault rifle damage. We found that on the wall. 30,000 credits. 2,000 palladium. And a partridge in a pear tree. You'll be appearing now. You'll come back later if you can. Have a good stream, day, night, everyone. All right, Captain Shield. I don't know how long I'm going to stream tonight, because obviously this is normally when I consider wrapping up, but I've only kind of been going for hour and a half. That, by the way, is another excuse I'm giving as far as Cultist Simulator is concerned, because as soon as I knew that I was doing a later stream, it would be a shorter one for sure. I'll still try and get a little activity out of it. At the very least, I should try and finish up my business in Afterlife.
Got something to report?
I'll just be going.
But yeah, it's...
Keep up the good work.
You know, I can sort of see... I suppose if you're, like, optimizing for, like, a Supreme Evil playthrough, you might be able to go for it, but you know, again, obviously Samara's built, like, it's not just that you've spent so much time with Samara, but also you've just built up this stuff like her oath and whatnot, so there's very little reason to I'm slightly curious if Arya has anything to say about...
What do you need? Thanks. Maybe I'll come back later.
You should find a nice young man to keep you warm in the meantime. You look like you need to loosen up.
While I'm doing this, I mentioned Johnny Big Time earlier. There is his link for those of you who didn't get a chance to check him out. Again, if you haven't seen him, I don't know if Johnny's done Mass Effect on stream, but I don't think he's played Mass Effect Andromeda. So maybe we can convince him to do that. But again, if you're new to the stream and you haven't heard the sales pitch, Johnny is an incredibly charismatic, very high energy caster. He is somebody who does games that I can't do on stream, and he also is able to do. He's also able to keep the action going, rather than me just kind of wandering around looking like a goofball while I shout people out. But he is my favorite caster on Twitch. He always puts on a good show. Like, even when he's pissed off at a game, he's fun to watch. And he's just one of these people who I feel like, because it's hard to get attention on Twitch, he is somebody who I think in a more sort of equal platform that sort of puts everybody in the same rank, Johnny would be incredibly successful as a professional broadcaster. And so if you want to see some undiscovered talent on Twitch, I mean, he's got a perfectly fine channel on his own. I mean, he gets higher viewer numbers than I do on some nights. But he really is a really special streamer, and I do encourage you guys to check him out if you haven't.
Do I know you? No, you humans all look the same. Here, have a drink on the house.
What do you think these people will do when they find out you're poisoning your customers?
Poisoning what now?
This has nothing to do with you.
Who's next? Turians? You don't like them either, right?
Answer the damn question, Forvan.
You want a piece of me? I'll leave your corpse for the fortune.
taking any chances.
If only I could get other people to do all my missions for me. All right, I think we're done. So here's a quick question for you, because it's going to be a little bit of a shorter stream. One way that I can appeal to the cultist crowd would be to read some codices. Would you guys like? So if it were to be the difference between a mission and codex entries, would you guys prefer some codex entries to be read, or would you prefer to see another mission? Keeping in mind it would likely be a side mission.
Come on, let me in.
I love the Elcor. Say it. Say something.
Ari's expecting me. Ugh.
Annoyed. If she were expecting you, you'd be inside.
You've let 10 people in.
Oh.
All residents aboard the station should feel free to do whatever they can to control any plague-ridden porcher trying to flee from the sewers. If violence is your thing, and you see deceased, contact Genera Relocation.
You're biased for Mass Effect? The first one? Like I should just quit out of this game and move into the other? Alright.
Commander, you've received a new message at your private terminal.
From Shaman Erdnot. Damn it, I hate these things. But you need to hear this. You're part of Grunt's Krunt. You're his leader, so keep him alive. Here, I have to stay polite, play the role, but our people are dying. Krogan have always valued survival over tradition. If we're going to survive as a people, we need your vat-grown grunt. Okir was a madman, but he was a madman with a plan, and that's more than most have on this ball of rock. So bring him back from your damn mission. My people need him, and if you all get killed, I'll piss on your graves. Shaman Erdnot. So here is my $1 billion game idea. It's a Krogan diplomacy game. Ah, cool. Now all that mining pays off. All right, let's I think the way I'm going to handle the special dialogue is I will talk with the people on each level as I move through missions.
Still hard to believe Malin betrayed me. Betrayed my work. Disgusted by his actions. Proud of his nerve, though. Always thought he lacked backbone. Hope he finds something new. Better goal, better purpose. Fewer torture tests.
You're really at peace with what happened?
Yes, of course. Can't change what happened. Life continues. Back to mission, back to work. Become like Malin otherwise. Stellarian emotional processing faster than other species. Has to be. Short-lived culture can't spend time reminiscing.
So you really don't feel bad at all about what happened on Tachanka?
Yes, correct. Now at least. Greatly distressed at the time. Stages of grief, loss, anger, rationalization. Dealt with it. Most issues settled on Tachanka, some on shuttle back to Normandy.
Malin didn't seem like he processed his emotional response. He was obsessed with the genophage.
True, didn't mean to imply that Solarians were healthier emotionally. Can still make wrong choices, bad decisions from grief, anger, guilt. Malin couldn't accept feelings. Made decision, executed. Probably before I left for Omega. Wish I'd seen it. Solarians still feel, just resolve it quickly. Explains lack of marriage, can't sustain courtship emotions. Or perhaps based on reproduction. Unsure.
What about Malin's data on the genophage? His attempts at a cure?
Gone now. Could recreate, but could always have recreated. Or improved. Taught Malin everything he knows. Didn't teach him everything I knew. Not important now, regardless. Appreciate you helping me back on Tuchanka. Should get back to work. Wasted enough time already. Lots to do. Talk later?
It's later.
Shepard, how can I help?
Have you got a minute to talk?
Not now. Working on collector data. Have ruled out artificially intelligent virus. Unless it's very intelligent. And toying with me. Tests. Anything else?
I'll let you work.
We'll be here if you need me.
What's this area of the ship?
This is the FTL communications room. In addition to interfacing with the FTL comm network, Normandy is fitted with a quantum entanglement communicator linked to the Elusive Man's office. This allows lag-free communication even when you operate off the comm grid.
That's all for now.
Logging you out, Shepard.
I don't think there's anything new that Jacob has to say, but...
Commander, can I help you with something?
What do you think of the state of the crew?
This crew is as good as it can be. We've got a shot. A long shot, but it's a hell of a lot better than nothing. Anything else, Commander?
I'm more interested in just talking for a bit.
I'm good, Shepard. Ready for anything. We live, we'll get loud, and spill some drinks on the Citadel.
We'll talk later.
Commander.
Okay, let's, I'll get a couple of codex entries read and then we can think about what, just starting with the journal though. Not ready to go for getting the IFF yet. We'll save that for more substantial progress in the game. As far as assignments, I may or may not do the Citadel and Ilium missions. This one I definitely want to do. Project Firewalker is sort of a target of opportunity, but I'm willing to go for it. But we're probably getting close to the end of the game, so let's take a minute to get through some codices. Okay, publications. Ascension. Written by human author Drew Karpshin, the popular military historical novel Ascension focuses on several lives warped or destroyed by the human survivalist cult Cerberus. Following the Citadel attack of 2182 and the accelerated rise of human influence in the galaxy, Cerberus instituted Ascension, a secret biotics program aimed at producing a superhuman warrior. Biotics prodigy Gillian Grayson, a 12-year-old autistic girl, suffered for the sins of her father, a secret Cerberus operative and red sand addict. Paul Grayson was ensnared in a web of criminality involving a Quarian traitor and extending to Saren Arterius, the Geth and terminal threat to the Quarian flotilla. Having fled to the Terminus system with his daughter after exposure of Cerberus's link to Ascension, Grayson was pursued by Gillian's teacher, scientist Kaylee Sanders, initiating a chain of tragedies that demonstrated Cerberus's nearly unlimited power and boundless ambition. Revelation. Revelation is a popular military historical novel by human writer Drew Karpshin that dramatizes human conflicts and political expansion following the 2148 recovery of the Prothean mass relay on Pluto and beginning of human galactic exploration. In 2165, years before his rise to political prominence, Lieutenant David Anderson was a young veteran of the Turian War, investigating the destruction of top secret military research station Shanji. Every scientist stationed at Shanji had been slaughtered except for Kaylee Sanders, who disappeared with secret files, making her Anderson's prime suspect. The book traced Anderson's dangerous investigation of Sanders, which included run-ins with Blue Sun's mercenaries and a Krogan bounty hunter. The investigation uncovered illegal research into AI and forced Anderson into an alliance with human-hating Turian Spectre Saren Arterius, who would eventually enter into a genocidal collaboration with the Geth. Ships and vehicles. The A-61 Mantis gunship, the workhorse of mercenary bands throughout the galaxy. The Mantis is a two-man vectored thrust aircraft that excels in close air support roles. Highly modular in construction, the Mantis can be reconfigured as a low-altitude gunship, a fighter, and a high-altitude bomber, or even a single stage-to-orbit spaceplane that can engage enemy craft around the planet or space station. The The only role that the Mantis cannot perform is that of a true deep space fighter and has no FTL drive. First rolled off the assembly lines in 2170, the Mantis remains in service in dozens of armies across the galaxy. It is most commonly used as air support in pitched ground battles, in a configuration that sports 2 pods for Inferno PKRs, precision kill rockets, and a chin-mounted M350 mass accelerator cannon. Its kinetic batteries, thermal decoy system, and electronic countermeasures suite make the Mantis far less vulnerable to surface-to-air attacks than previous generations of aircraft. Like most modern planes, the Mantis uses an Element 0 core to ease the load of the engines with a mass effect field, allowing it to take off vertically or hover in place using minimum fuel. This also gives it far greater range and speed than the helicopters and jump jet aircraft that once filled its niche. A Mantis can take off from Baton Rouge, reach Moscow in a few hours, fly a ground attack mission, and then return home before having to refuel. The FTL drive. Faster-than-light drives use Element 0 cores to reduce the mass of the ship, allowing higher rates of acceleration. This effectively raises the speed of light within the mass effect field, allowing high-speed travel with negligible relativistic time dilation effects. Starships still require conventional thrusters, chemical rockets, commercial fusion torch, economy ion engine, or military anti-proton drive, in addition to the FTL drive core. With only a core, a ship has no motive power. The amount of ESO and power required for a drive increases exponentially to the mass being moved or the degree it is being lightened. Very massive ships or very high speeds are prohibitively expensive. If the field collapses while the ship is moving at faster than light speed, the effects are catastrophic. The ship is snapped back to sublight velocity, the enormous excess energy shed in the form of lethal Cherenkov radiation. The FTL drive appearance. New space travelers ask, what does it look like outside a ship moving faster than light speed? Part of the answer can be seen in a simple pane of glass. Light travels slower through glass than it does through open air. Light also moves slower in a conventional space than it does in a high-speed mass effect field. This causes refraction. Any light entering at an angle is bent and separated into a spectrum. Objects outside the ship will appear refracted. The greater the difference between the objective, exterior, and subjective, interior speeds of light, the greater the refraction. As the subjective speed of light is raised within the field, objects outside will appear to redshift, eventually becoming visible only to radio telescope antenna. High-energy electromagnetic sources normally hidden to the eye become visible in a high blue spectrum. As the speed of light continues to be raised, X-ray, gamma ray, and eventually cosmic ray sources become visible. Stars will be replaced by pulsars, and accretion disks of black holes, quasars, and gamma ray bursts. To an outside observer, a ship within a mass effect drive envelope appears to be blue shifted. If within a field that allows travel at twice the speed of light, any radiation it emits has twice the energy as normal. If the ship is in a field of about 200 times the light speed, it radiates visible light as X-rays and gamma rays, and the infrared heat from the hull is blue shifted up to the visible spectrum or higher. Ships moving at FTL are visible at great distances, though their signature will only propagate at the speed of light. That's really interesting. I wonder if there's a realization of what Earth looks like with FTL travel, if the stars look different as a result of that. As a positive or negative electric current is passed through, this is the drive charge, through an FTL core, it acquires a static electrical charge. Drives can be operated on an average of 50 hours before they reach charge saturation. This change is proportional to the magnitude of mass reduction. A heavier or faster ship reaches saturation more quickly. If the charge is allowed to build, the core will discharge into the hull of the ship. All ungrounded crew members are fried to a crisp, all electronic systems burned out, and metal bulkheads may be melted and fused together. The safest way to discharge a core is to land on a planet and establish a connection to the ground, like a lightning rod. Larger vessels like dreadnoughts cannot land and must discharge into the planetary magnetic field. The ship passes the charge from the drive core to the exterior armored hull and then dives into the magnetic field. As the hull discharges, sheets of lightning jump away into the field, creating beautiful auroral displays on the planet. The ship must retract its sensors and weapons while dumping the charge to prevent damage, leaving it blind and helpless. Discharging at a moon with a weak magnetic field can take days. Discharging into the powerful field of a gas giant may require less than an hour. Deep space facilities such as the Citadel often have special discharge facilities for visiting ships. The Helios Thruster Module. Intended for next-generation fighter craft, the Heat Industries Helios Thruster Module propulsion system far outpaces the typical liquid hydrogen, liquid oxygen reactions that power a frigate's maneuvering thrusters. By using metastable metallic hydrogen, the Helios boasts a fuel that burns at far greater efficiency than liquid H2O2. Navigators can execute numerous small course corrections inherent in any long-distance travel without fear of exhausting the ship's fuel supplies. This net gain extends towards forward impulse as well. A ship powered by antiprotons can coast temporarily using the Helios to reach an inferior but highly sustainable speed. Such efficiency lowers antiproton consumption, a constant concern for any warship. When a Helios-propelled ship must refuel, however, it typically relies on a large carrier or a nearby planetary factory to synthesize the metallic hydrogen. This process uses extremely dense mass effect fields to create the metal under pressures of over 1 million Earth atmospheres, an activity most safely done while planetside. While that process may seem like a drawback compared to skimmer ships that can gather hydrogen and oxygen from anywhere in the universe, the combat superiority of the Helios' maneuvering capabilities is often a worthwhile trade-off. The same efficiency that allows for microburn course correction can power rapid bursts of motion. Once a pilot becomes used to the ship's new energetic responses, she can easily put the ship wherever and at whatever angle she desires. I think we'll go through space combat and then we'll leave it for now, because obviously ships and vehicles is a big section. Heat limits the length and intensity of ship-to-ship combat. Starships generate enormous heat when they fire higher-energy weapons, perform maneuvering burns, and run onboard combat electronics. In combat, warships produce heat more quickly than they can disperse it. As heat builds within a vessel, the crowded spaces become increasingly uncomfortable. Before the heat reaches lethal levels, a ship must win or retreat by entering FTL. After an FTL run, the ship halts, shuts down non-essential systems, and activates the heat radiation gear. Combat endurance varies by ship design and by the battle's location. Battles in the deep cold of interstellar space can go on for some time. Engagements close to a star are brief. Since habitable worlds are usually close to a star, battles over them are frantic. General tactics. Shells lofted by surface navies crash back to Earth when their acceleration is overwhelmed by gravity and air resistance. In space, a projectile has unlimited range. It will keep moving until it hits some things. That, Serviceman Chung, is why we don't eyeball it! Practical gunnery range is determined by the velocity of the attacker's ordnance and the maneuverability of the target. Beyond a certain range, a small ship's ability to dodge trumps the larger attacker's projectile speed. The longest range combat occurs between dreadnoughts, whose projectiles have the highest velocity but are least maneuverable. The shortest range combat is between frigates, which have the slowest projectile velocities and the highest maneuverability. Opposing dreadnoughts open with main gun artillery duel at extreme ranges of tens of thousands of kilometers. The fleets close, maintaining evasive lateral motion while keeping their bow guns facing the enemy. Fighters are launched in an attempt to close to disruptor torpedo range. Cautious admirals weaken the enemy with ranged fire and fighter strikes before committing to close action. Aggressive commanders advance so cruisers and frigates can engage. At long range, the main guns of cruisers become useful. Friendly interceptors engage enemy fighters until the attackers enter the range of ship-based guardian fire. Dreadnoughts fire from the rear, screened by smaller ships. Commanders must decide whether to commit to a general melee or retreat to FTL. At medium range, ships can use broadside guns. Fleets intermingle, and it becomes difficult to retreat in order. Ships with damaged kinetic barriers are vulnerable to wolfpack frigate flotillas that speed through the battle space. Only fighters and frigates enter close knife fight ranges of 10 or few kilometers. Fighters loose their disruptor torpedoes, bringing down a ship's kinetic barriers and allowing it to be swarmed by frigates. Guardian lasers become viable weapons, swatting down fighters and boiling away warship armor. Neither dreadnoughts nor cruisers can use their main guns at close range. Laying the bow on a moving target becomes impossible. Superheated thruster exhaust becomes a hazard. Planetary assaults. Planetary assaults are complicated if the target is a habitable garden world. The attackers cannot approach the defenders straight on. The Citadel Conventions prohibit the use of large kinetic impactors against habitable worlds. In a straight-on attack, any misses plow through the planet behind the defending fleet. If the defenders position themselves between the attackers and the planet, they can fire at will while the attacker risks hitting the planet. Successful assaults on garden worlds hinge upon up-to-date intelligence. Attackers need to determine where the enemy's defenses are so that they may approach from an angle that allows them to fire with no danger of collateral damage. Note, this is not necessary for hostile worlds. Once control from orbit has been lost, defensive garrisons disperse into the wilderness. An enemy with orbital superiority can bombard surface forces with impunity. The best option for defenders is to hide and collect reconnaissance in anticipation of relief forces. Given the size of a planet, it is impractical to garrison entire conquered worlds. Unfortunately, colonization efforts tend to focus on building up a dozen or fewer areas. Ground forces occupy the spaceports, industrial facilities, and major population centers. The wilderness is patrolled by unmanned aerial vehicles and satellite reconnaissance. If a defender unit is spotted, air mobile raid deployment units and satellite artillery are used to pin down and destroy them. Pursuit tactics. Dependent on light, sensors cannot detect objects moving at faster than light speeds. No ship can be detected at interstellar ranges. Detection at interplanetary ranges suffers from light speed lag. Observers see ships not where they appear to be, but where they were when the light-bearing image left them, minutes, hours, or days before. To counteract light speed lag, battle fleets surround themselves with spheres of screening and scouting frigates. Pursuers cannot detect ships and directly intercept them. Instead, pursuers tracked where objects were, where they were heading, and at what speed they were moving. Such data reliably predicts an object's future location and for pursuit along its light-lagged wake. Ships trying to evade pursuit follow erratic zigzag courses, requiring pursuers to make stops to update their projections. Some of this stuff I find really clever because I've never actually thought about how, combat in a world after the discovery of FTL travel would work. Space combat, trans-relay assaults. The crucial choice for any attack through mass relays is how to divide the fleet for transit. The accuracy of a relay's mass projection depends on the mass being moved and how far it's going. Any long distance and/or high mass jump will see drift. That is, a ship may be hundreds or millions kilometers from its intended drop point, in any direction from the relay. Distance can't be chosen by admirals, but a relay is told how much mass to transit. For example, if told to move 1 million metric tons of mass, the relay will scan the approach corridor, find 4 250,000-ton freighters, and transit them together, maintaining their relative positions. A commander has the option of moving his fleet as one large coherent formation that may be wildly off position, or breaking it up into many smaller formations that can be individually closer to the intended attack point, but could be widely dispersed. Conservative assault doctrine holds that fleets should be moved en masse, maintaining concentration of force and reducing the chance of collision. The only time it is reasonable to split up a formation is during blockade running. And we will leave all of the other ships and vehicle entries for another time, because I am sort of aware of the fact that this is going to be a shorter stream, and not everybody likes just listening to me read the entire time. So now that we're done with Omega, I'll maybe make sure that I've got everything on my fuel depot. I suppose the Titan Nebula is my best call here, because all of these have got their 100%. Obviously, Ilium and the Citadel are options. Hang on, why am I still able to find Tuchanka? Thank you, Galva850. I too improved my fleet, my ship combat knowledge by 15 points as a result of me. Okay, apparently it just lists Tuchanka. So yeah, Citadel and Ilium I'll need to figure out on my own. I will take the rule, so on stream I'll maybe visit systems that are on the way, but what I might do off-cast is just keep sort of mining planets until... what am I doing? I'll keep mining planets until I find like an actual combat mission or like a planet-side mission, and then I'll just I'll start the next stream with that. So for now, though, I think we will go to the Titan Nebula, and we will stop the infected production line. And I might call it there because we're getting close to the 2-hour mark, and I'm getting a little bit far out from a time I should be going to bed, so we'll head to Chapek.
I have detected an anomaly.
Baked in fierce heat of a white sun, Chapek is a rocky, waterless world wrapped in a haze of hydrogen and ethane. Sulfur and iron give a yellowish and black tinges to much of the planet's surface. No registered settlements appear in the records, though there are clearly metallic anomalies that indicate roofed structures. Orbital distance 4.4 AU, orbital period of 7.1 Earth years, radius 5,899 kilometers, day length of 18.7 Earth hours, atmospheric pressure of 0.95 Earth atmospheres, surface temperature 65 degrees Celsius, mass and surface gravity of 0.8 Gs. Of course we're gonna mine this thing. Hey, Domi, how are you doing? Surface scan detects mech production facility matching the registration parameters of the Han Kadar Corporation. Facility reports an emergency lockdown at this location. Personnel scans report no living beings detected. Hazard scans show a large number of virus-infected mechs quarantined within the facility. Deactivation of the primary production line controls should disrupt the creation of additional infected mechs. I'm alright. I'm still feeling a bit guilty about not doing Cultist Simulator tonight. The reason for that was 8 hours Monday, 8 hours Tuesday. I wanted to give people a chance to catch up with the Steam stream if they were so inclined, and then I knew that I would be going for a shorter period of time. In this case, 2 hours, so it's really only an hour less than what I would normally do, but I didn't know that at the time. So, because I am really looking forward. I do rather like that black outfit, but I know I need to get some variety, so I think I'm just going to go for my usual duo of Tali and Jack. But yeah, so I am feeling a little bad that I didn't do Cultist Simulator tonight, but I sort of deep down think it was the right call. I just still don't feel 100% about it. Okay, I think I'm gonna go for the cryo ammo because I've really not been taking advantage of my ammo so far. So in this particular case here, heavy disruptor is good for shields and synthetics, so obviously that's good for this mission. Cryo ammo freezes enemies, allowing you to shatter them with gunfire biotics. Payload of supercooled atomic particles can snap freeze a target in place, making vulnerable to extra damage. So that's, I mean, I suppose a better one against humans, maybe, but biologicals, but I'm not crazy about the other alternatives. So, well, I was originally thinking about not streaming, but I told myself I would I'd write a blog, and if I had enough time, or finish writing a blog, I'd stream with whatever available time I had left. So it wasn't a sure thing, and I'll admit I kind of feel like I rushed the blog, and maybe the point wasn't as well put as it could have been. But I am trying to get into the habit of making sure that I do one a month at least. And headshots counted for more now. But yeah, I don't know, like I always feel a little off on the blog post. There's a couple things that I like about it. There's a few things that I don't, but I'm trying to get, we're working on that post for a month. Well, not really. Like if I was working on it regularly, it would have been done in a couple of days. That's probably like half a day's work, maybe. But there's a really good point that Alexis made on Twitter, and I'm trying to remember where the quote's originally from. I think it might be Philip Pullman. But hey, Dr. Frankenvinder, how you doing? We're actually probably close to wrapping up tonight. I'll just caution you ahead of time, but I feel like this is included to make this feel like it's a much more open area, but it doesn't quite sell me on it. But yeah, so he sort of said it's like, this was more about writer's block, but the idea, like there's no such thing as plumber's block, and what would you think of a plumber that only did the job, every other day, citing plumber's block as a reason? I mean, the way he said is like, it feels like it's clean, it can feel like you're cleaning out the fridge, but the important thing is to just do it. And I have plenty of excuses. Like, there's a lot of demands on my time, and I do quite a bit of writing at work already. But I do want to do a better job of making sure that I do some personal writing for myself. And I really don't like the I'm busy excuse. So, anyway, I hope you guys are doing well. Attention all personnel, our new circuit board supplier has issued an immediate recall on the MX75524A obedience processor, which has been found to cause a systematic breakdown of associated components. We've begun to search for a new supplier. In the meantime, discontinue use of the MX75524A until further notice. Dr. Rochelle, Director, Han Kadar, Experimental Mechanics. No response. Gina, just FYI, we lost contact with the MSV Corsica. After you expressed concern, I checked the logs, and indeed, the mechs and parts that they picked up contain the recalled OPUs. We know the Corsica was headed for Jera Station in the Strabo system, but we can't seem to contact them. I hope they're okay, but I think we've done all that we can do at this point. Attention, emergency. Yeah, one of the big things I want to work on is getting the word count down, and I used to be good at that, but now they're becoming over 2,000 words long. So that's one big one I want to focus on, and I think sometimes it's good just to get the idea out and to focus on another topic, because I don't like. I did want to do at least a diversity article that wasn't founded on like, you should do this because it's the right thing to do. I do think, diversity is a good thing in and of itself, but I also understand that people don't necessarily believe that. Like, not necessarily everybody believes that. So I wanted to try and make the case that I thought hasn't been made in some of these other types of articles covering the issue, because I think there are some big benefits that have come from that in terms of gaming. But you guys can leave the article. I've already spent a lot of time talking about it. Dr. Telrassen, I'm getting reports of mechs coming off our production lines and assaulting workers. Some of them seem to be self-destructing at random. Even units not initially installed with the faulty OPUs are showing signs of viral infection. We're looking at a potential facility-wide catastrophe here. We're containing this as best as we can, but we can't keep this suppressed much longer. When Dr. Rochelle learns about this, heads will roll. Mine will not be one of them. Chief Saunders, Security. Dr. Telrassen, Dr. Rochelle has ordered a complete lockdown. You are hereby ordered to seal the production line access corridor from the rest of the facility. I realize that doing this will seal me and any workers to remain inside with malfunctioning mechs. This does not affect your orders. It has been an honor to work with you. Chief Saunders, Security. Yeah, so the article was... the article is basically the amoral case for diversity in games. And it's essentially just the idea, like, so again, because I am very much in line with economic thinking, like, I just tend to think of these things in terms of trade-offs. So it's like, okay, let's avoid the question of whether or not there should be more diverse representation. So, does every game need to be something that appeals to me individually? I say, okay, let's say that maybe isn't as big of an objective. Let's say that everything stays the same. What would the effects of that be? And I sort of just tried to run through the idea as far as I could, and I'm like, well, you have this sort of... You have this amount of growth that would happen from people for which that demographic, for which the demographics presumably would appeal, and so on and so forth. And I tried to go about it as honestly as I could, and sort of see some ways that I think popular hobby horses are whipping boys for, for the quote unquote the gamers. So like obviously mobile gaming isn't always well looked at. I tried to give some examples of ways that it has very directly benefited people who do not necessarily like or play that sort of thing. So, Chief, I've located the Asari, Dr. Telrassen, in the production line access corridor. We've set up a barricade and disabled access to the rest of the corridor. Officer Gamble. Proceeding to objective. Chief, I've secured Dr. Telrassen and I'm heading into the warehouse to access the production line control room. I'll update you once I'm in. Warehouse breached. Chief, I'm in the warehouse. It seems pretty empty. Sir, I can see the control room just above the storage area. I might need a few minutes, but I'm pretty sure that I can get that main production line shut down. Gamble. I'm mildly curious, incidentally, if... I was just thinking about this. If the Samara mission can be failed. Be sure to check it out. It'd be nice to see another point of view on the matter, even if the conclusion is similar to your personal opinion. Well, yeah, like, this is the one challenge, right, is that there's always the argument that can be made in terms of, like, okay, well, you're just virtue signaling. And it's like, you know, fair enough. Like, it's not like I'm really saying anything that is particularly controversial. You know, not every article needs to be super aggressive, like the EA Take Suck one, although I'm really curious what will happen at the quarterly report. Oh, damn it. But yeah, I don't know. I sort of figured that, like, so the perspective that I try and take on that is, I could see that if I did another article that, you know, directly appeals to, you know, the warm fuzzies or things that people kind of already believe, I can sort of see where there's sort of the argument of, okay, well, you're just virtue signaling or whatever. So it was as good of an attempt as I could get to try and say, okay, you know, here, you know, let's accept for a minute that, you know, a very pro, I mean, so in my sense, it's kind of a pro-choice argument. You know, I like having lots of variety. I understand that if there are games that are not exactly my kind of thing, that people can learn from those mistakes and make better games, and perhaps there will be something in that genre that I wind up liking. But yeah, basically, to try and say, it's like, okay, so instead of just taking this for given as being a good thing, how can I address this in terms of the idea of trade-offs? You know, if we say we want to have, you know, more homogeneity in terms of games, what is the cost to us? Do games become more expensive? Do games, you know, become an inferior option to other entertainment options? Thanks, Jack. And obviously a lot of the stuff is speculative, right? Like, essentially what I have to do is take what I know, take what I observe of certain things, and move on with them. But, I don't know, I'm open to, like, even, like, within people who follow, like, I know there's points where there's disagreement. I know that I tend to sort of oversell what would probably be taken as the, like, liberal as in the American political sense rather than liberal as in political party sense. And I mean, I certainly can point to, like, tweets and comments that I have about, you know, our prime minister, who is sort of the poster boy of very progressive thought, which would probably give my credentials for somebody who's maybe not completely drunk the progressive Kool-Aid. But on the other hand, too, like, those labels aren't always that helpful in a conversation. Like, it just comes down to, like, do you fit this label that allows me to ignore or agree with you? Then there's no point in having the conversation, because, you know, I'm not really going to add anything interesting. If I try and say, it's like, okay, well, here's something that I kind of take for granted, maybe there's another view on this, and here's how I can come to, you know, here's how I can sort of reconcile these things that I observe with maybe a world where it doesn't work the way that I want. It's helpful for me to just try and figure out where I stand on certain things. And the EA article, while it took an aggressive tone, is a really good example of that one, because I sort of started off, that one just sort of started off as like, okay, you know, what are the arguments against EA that are good ones? And the problem is that when I did that article, I could not find a single one that held up when I actually tried to put it through. And so I'm like, well, let's just jump in with both feet on this one. And I wrote something that was definitely a lot more strident in its tone. And I had a hell of a lot of fun writing that one, by the way. So, I don't know. I like writing stuff. I think the one thing is I probably don't need to like hit the publish button on everything that I write, but I've always enjoyed writing stuff because it helps me learn things. That has always been my big driver to write things. Well, it got the most attention, both positive and negative, out of anything I've ever written. So it's also the only article I've written that has resulted in people following my stuff. So, I will be the first to admit I'm not crazy about the fact that infuriating people gets you attention, but, you know, I can try and justify it in the form of like, well, you know, it is about how there's a certain type of... I'll just let the game talk for a bit. That's it, huh? Shut down the Hanketer Experimental Mechanics Facility production line on Chapek. Deactivated all infected mechs. 125 experience, 375 funding, both from Cerberus and Found, for a total of 7,500. 500 element, 0 found, and a partridge in a pear tree. Yeah, well, I don't know, I do feel a little bad because one of the first articles I did was on backseating, and I responded rather negatively to a comment that somebody made.
Commander, you've received a new message at your private terminal.
And basically the point that they were making is like, you know, you're starting off about backseating, and now I'm learning more about your politics, and there's a side of me that says like, yes, but I am talking about expertise and how it relates to some of these other things, and I feel that these things follow from one another. I didn't really think it was a very fair comment, and so I engaged with it, and that probably wasn't the right thing to do because I think it set a tone where I'm going to always respond to criticism, and there is definitely something to be said for the fact that, you know, I do... Especially when I present things where I'm trying, you know, like the old, like, so essay, it is a word from French, to try. Essay is a verb, to try or to attempt something. And Montaigne, I don't know if that's a correct pronunciation of his name, but he's sort of, I think, considered the first essayist, and there's sort of his attempts. And I really like that idea. It's the thing that kind of drives me to write essays, because it is sort of an effort to try and wrestle with an idea. And I do try to have an original take or an original idea on something. I don't just like spouting platitudes. I don't like immediately falling onto default positions. I'm not crazy about the fact that we live in a time where there's sort of a take industry. So, you know, as soon as somebody hears something about, you know, Marie Kondo and this method about minimizing clutter, which may or may not involve getting rid of your books, everybody seemed to have a take on the value of the printed word. And I think the much more interesting take would be, what did Marie Kondo actually say about books? Because I have a very large library, and I have no intention of leaving those, like, of getting rid of those books. But I will say, when I moved across the country, I did not take all of my books with me. So somewhere, you know, somewhere between get rid of all printed word in your home and you need to keep everything, including the, like, 7 Bibles that I have gotten as gifts from my, you know, somewhat religious family, you know, somewhere in between that lies, I think, the truth. So, what else were we saying? I write to attempt to describe the horrible abomination, the story that follows, but that's just Galva says, not much rag, just playing Ragnus Nomi. I still haven't gotten into Path of Exile. The problem, I've gotten into Diablo now, so I feel like I should be able to give Path of Exile another shot. But I sometimes find Diablo-style games kind of boring, so I might need to be in the right mood. But Octavian Zero does Path of Exile, and Octavian Zero gives me a lot of very nice attention, so... from Diana, Commander Shepard. Arya Talux told me where to send this. I'm Neff's mother, Diana. We talked when you came to investigate her death. Arya also told me that a dead Asari woman was found in one of the wealthy apartments, that she was the one who'd killed my daughter. Thank you. I don't know who brought you into my life, but thank you for avenging my daughter. My Neff deserved better than this. I couldn't give it to her, but you at least killed the bitch that took what little she had away. Gratefully, Diana. Yeah, I see. This is the other thing too. Like, so one of the arguments that I was interested in about, you know, kind of anti-mobile gaming is somebody who said, you know, the business model is, you know, built around exploitation. You know, that you, you know, the opposition on the opposition to mobile gaming is founded on this idea that it is a negative force in gaming, that it's exploiting people, and that is why there's a dislike. Now it's one that I disagree with, because my experience of mobile gaming has been Infinity Blade, Frozen Synapse, what else? Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery, Reigns, Monument Valley is a really clever one. Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery is also a really cool one. XCOM, the first Firaxis one, not XCOM 2. But like I liked this because I wasn't entirely sold on this argument. Like so we're talking about the takes industry. The take I did not like about disliking mobile was one that says because gamers associate mobile with the feminine, they dislike it. It's like there may be, you know, so like I'll say, like, even allowing for the idea that if I grant the premise that there is misogyny inherent in gaming, which is obviously a very big claim, I think, you know, people dislike mobile gaming because they're misogynists is not a good take. I think that is a bridge too far, and I don't like it when people overreach like that, because I feel like it's one of these things where you feel that your public needs to hear your opinion on this thing, and you need to have, you need to have, quote unquote, the take. So with that in mind, right, do I find it a credible argument against mobile gaming to say that it's built on exploitation? No more so than I find that to be true of, say, Diablo's mechanics. You know, Diablo is built entirely on this random distribution of goods, and sort of building you into sort of this habit-forming behavior. You know, like, Diablo and loot boxes are made for each other, basically. It's just that Diablo, you pay for the loot boxes up front and you get an unlimited supply as long as you keep playing, and for the individual loot boxes you pay for them incrementally. But like, essentially the things that people object to about loot boxes are present within certain game mechanics and loot. So, but obviously this is about mobile gaming, not loot box. So it's like, you know, I don't think that you can paint mobile gaming with that broad brush, because there's plenty of premium game. Like, there was another, just a fun little side game. It's basically it's almost a board game, really, called The Devil's Attorney, which I found kind of charming, and I really enjoyed that one too. And that one has absolutely no monetization strategy outside of the fact that you pay for it up front. And so... But with that in mind, when somebody says to you, you know, I object to gaming to mobile gaming on the grounds that it is an unethical business model and it is one that we should not encourage, I have to take that seriously. Somebody might be arguing in bad faith, and they might just not like mobile games, and so they're creating the straw man to oppose. But if it's a straw man, I should be able to point that out and say, well, you know, here are some of the most successful mobile titles, and they don't seem to have this pay-to-win strategy. So Similar with Path of Exile. I mean, I sometimes wonder if Path of Exile looks like it's got some very confusing like upgrade systems in that, and I wonder if it is designed to sort of obfuscate what the value of its premium currencies are. But you know, again, like the reason I dislike some free-to-play stuff is I sometimes feel like I'm kind of playing against the developer to like get the most out of my premium currency. But you know, Threes has a free-to-play version which is ad-supported, and Warframe's a lot of fun. Again, Warframe just seems to have so much stuff to do that you know, I sometimes find it a little overwhelming, and I sometimes just want to sit down and play the game. So my big complaint about sort of free-to-play mechanics and such is that they tend to create a lot of systems that need to be managed, and I sometimes find it a little overwhelming and not necessarily that rewarding to try and navigate. But yeah, I do need to catch up. I do need to catch up a little bit with chat. So, where were we? Not even Urban Dictionary helped you. What? For which? Oh, Wrestling Jimmy's, gotcha. Lore of the game. Yes, I've heard good things about the lore. Explain people. I think Sean Bean answered that, Domi, but I'll do my best as soon as I catch up. You're way into mechanics and theory crafting, making build, and the various equipment interacts with parts of the skill tree, keep you coming. But yeah, and that's just it. This is just it. This is why I wanted to take the time and finish that diversity article. Because I am someone who does not find Diablo that exciting on an average day. Like, I'm playing it more now and I am appreciating it as a game, but Diablo is a massively successful franchise. And so if I take my individual preferences and I project that out to the world as some like categorical imperative, like obviously gaming is worse off for that. So essentially answering the diversity question for gaming is essentially saying to me, it's like, how do I live in a world where resources get put towards creating Diablo when what I really want is another like Stellaris or Victoria 2 or something like that. Frank and Victor says, why not both, Domi? You have heavily influenced by H.P. Lovecraft, Lewis Carroll, Mary Shelley. One of your favorite stories revolve around the absolute humanity that can be found in even the most horrifying creatures. So here's a question for you. I've always wondered about this, Dr. Frank and Victor. I kind of feel like Mary Shelley is the first science fiction author, but is there a consensus around that, or am I just totally making stuff up as I go along? I probably know more about Lewis Carroll than H.P. Lovecraft, though. His real name was Charles Dodgson, wasn't it? He was a mathematician. Is it because they're made to be addictive? Partially because of that, Domi. Sean Bean says you've read before that 15% of mobile players account for 50% of revenue for some big games, and yeah, that's the big one that people talk about. Actually, you know, I'll run through the rest of the chat as well. Yeah, there's some of your favorites. As a psychology major, you end up getting into contact with that theme, humanity and atrociousness, quite often, a topic that both intrigues and disturbs you. And so hearing you like to explore it sounds really refreshing. There's a screenwriting instructor named Robert McKee. There was a book that he recommended to me, which I never actually wound up reading. I couldn't find a copy of it, but there's, I think it's a psychology book by Roy Baumeister called, I think it's just called Evil, or maybe The Sense of Evil. Anyways, apparently it's supposed to be good on those themes. He recommended it for writing like convincing horror and thriller villains. Galva850 says, really interesting thing about mobile games is that the Chinese market is mostly fine with the pay-to-win system and almost expect it. It's almost like the politics. Yeah, well, it's hard. Like, I sometimes think a lot of pay-to-win arguments are overblown. So, like, I'll put it to you this way. Like, if a game has an effective matchmaking system, and you buy an item that genuinely gives you an advantage in the game, then the matchmaking system is going to remove that advantage. So let's say if you're using some kind of elo system, and the item you buy gives you 500 points in an elo system, then what's going to happen is you are going to just smoke your competition for a couple of games, and then you're going to be moved up into the advanced bracket, and obviously it won't be based on your skill, but you are going to be matched against people for which that advantage no longer exists. And then somebody says, yes, but then there's, the individual games are tainted by people. But individual games are constantly tainted from people. If I play drunk, if I'm, upset, if I'm streaming and I'm paying attention to chat, I'm not going to be as effective as some of the other, some of the other games that I play. So I'm not entirely convinced that, there's the possibility that one otherwise perfect game might have been sullied. Removes pay to win. Now, you can argue about matchmaking. If you have an inefficient matchmaking algorithm, then clearly there's going to be problems, but that's not the argument people are making. The argument people are making is that if you pay money, you gain an advantage inside the base game, and there really doesn't seem to be... Like, I just don't see a lot of evidence of these cases. There's the anecdata, right? I was in this game and the guy bought the claymore of ass kickery and he just dominated the match the whole time. But I hear that I cannot tell you how many times I've heard the same argument in Dota 2, a game which has absolutely no... I mean, now they have data that you can pay for. But when I was playing Dota 2, there was literally no way to spend money in the game other than on cosmetics, and people were still making the same arguments that they do about pay-to-win systems. So I just think people don't like losing games. So, sure, it's my own choice to get drunk and play, but if you have somebody on your team who gets drunk and plays, I do not control that. I have as much control over that as somebody on the other team buying the claymore of ass kickery. An individual game may or may not have these events that are perturbing something. And by the way, lack of sleep or just getting distracted, having an animal in your apartment, the getting drunk example is just the most obvious one. But you have as much control of having a teammate who is drunk as, being paired with somebody who just bought an item, which, and again, keep in mind I'm granting a premise which I don't think is really that true. That there are items that just unambiguously give you a massive skill, equivalent to let's say a standard deviation from your normal skill level. That sort of thing just gets washed out from the matchmaking algorithm over time. So it's just one that I'm open to being convinced otherwise. I just I haven't seen something that shows me that the injustice that people are talking about hasn't. But I can think of a lot of times that people have given me arguments that basically resemble what I heard in Dota. Where else were we? I've played a couple of games after some drinking, but usually not multiplayer stuff. Dr. Frankenfinder says, in regards to that, she is kind of, but her writing of Frankenstein is more attributed to her conceiving the horror side of science fiction. Say, true science fiction, yeah, well, I figured genres probably develop over time, too. I mean, I don't know what the predecessor of Star Trek is, to be honest. It is, but well, so this is where the argument becomes really amorphous, right? Because there's a service you can buy called TrueSight, which gives you a bunch of data on how you play and certain milestones that you're hitting. And you could make the argument that because Valve is giving you objective information about your play and areas that you need to improve, and specifically counters as you're playing the game, saying, you are making less gold than you did last time, that this is conferring some advantage that somebody who's not paid for the service would not have available to them. I don't find it a convincing argument, but if we're allowing for the idea that somebody who's bought a weapon which will move them up in skill over time is enough to ruin a game and should not be permitted, then we need to say that getting data from the developer about your quality of play is something that unbalances the game, at least in the case of consistency, in my opinion. But the reason why people really don't like the mobile style is because of the concept of whales, and this is the point that Sean Bean pointed out. I don't know if the ratios are right, but he's hit the nail on the head in terms of the argument against it, which is there are people who play free-to-play games and don't spend a penny, and then there are people who spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on it. And if you want my opinion, if somebody can afford it, Like, I have no business telling them how to spend that money. There are some very wealthy people in the world, and the world is unfair. Ken Griffin bought, I think it's like a $322 million home for when he visits New York. 24,000 square feet that exist so that the founder, the manager of Citadel, a hedge fund, kind of focusing on quantitative and alternative investment strategies, doesn't want to stay in a hotel. That amount of wealth has been spent on that. That amount of space has been taken up so that he can have that property. It's the most expensive home in the world. I can't remember if it was 322 or 233, but anyways, it's hundreds of millions of dollars as a supplemental place. So look, the world is unfair. There are vast differences of income. And the fact of the matter is that a bunch of the whales are very wealthy people who do not think about spending thousands of dollars on a video game. And I'm like, you know what? Capitalism has allowed people to get this, this wealthy through, through managing finances or founding a company or something like that. If they want to spend on it, why not let the game get the money? And then you have the really negative side, and it's one that I don't like, and it's one that I do think we have a role in addressing, which is games that use manipulative behaviors to either sort of deceive you in terms of how much you are really spending. There are some techniques that people use to sort of create habits, and these are extracting as much money as they can from people. And I definitely have probably more conservative views than I think most people would agree with on loot boxes. I am not convinced about most proposals for loot box regulation. Because I also think back to when people were complaining about DLC, and I remember when that was beyond the pale, and now we've more or less come to terms with DLC. So I'm not inherently opposed to loot boxes or microtransactions, and I think a lot of the addiction articles that people make, or arguments that people make, are ones that are inconsistent with things that they like about gaming. It's effectively, they don't like loot boxes, so they're taking whatever argument they can get. But the biggest thing is that I definitely think, I definitely know of cases, and there are people who have talked about how they could not control themselves and they spent entirely too much money on the mobile game. But the whale business model is basically, it's like patronage. The Medici make banking as we know it, and they bankroll the Renaissance, and we get a bunch of amazing paintings as a result of it. And, some rich guy buys a bunch of stuff in Warframe, and that is why I'm able to play Warframe for free. And I find it a little bit harder to get morally outraged by that kind of model. But I also appreciate that the presentation that I've given here does not deal with the complexity of the people who probably shouldn't be spending that money on the game. And then, of course, you get into the question of, how much do you want to police somebody's behavior? Like, should you give somebody food stamps? Should you give them cash? Do we want to tax cigarettes and alcohol for moral reasons, or do we do it because they are inelastic goods? That sort of stuff. But obviously, I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole. Sensors detecting anomalous weather patterns on the planet's surface. Geth activity detected. Recommend extreme caution. This will probably be the last mission tonight. So, Sean Bean says, it doesn't seem sustainable to hope that a tiny fraction spends so much if you want your game to succeed. I don't know though, Sean Bean. Like, it seems like it seems to work. I mean, I think... So I put it to you this way, like, I think a business model that is built on extracting every last dollar from its player base, I don't see how that survives. But I don't know, like, is it really all that, like, is the risk that we're running into from having whales really all that different from the way that we used to sell video games? Where, you have your launch, you pay a bunch of money to get this thing out in the world. You're taking your your game into a publisher, or sorry, you're as a publisher or as a developer who's self-publishing or something like that, you arrange for the physical location of your game into stores. And if it doesn't sell within a certain period of time, then it goes in like the remainder bin and it never gets seen again. Now, obviously, digital distribution has changed that. But there is a big bet being made in terms of the geographic distribution of your player base, which might be unrelated to their enjoyment of it. Whereas for a mobile game, that is relying on keeping enough, enough wealthy or mildly affluent or whatever whales depend on. Is this system at least correlated with the quality of the game? And at least in this case, there isn't the geographic risk. Effectively, what's being brought in here is the idea that the game doesn't remain popular enough amongst the people who finance it. Actually, yeah, Johnny made a really good point there. We actually Well, I think I made the microtransaction model for arcades was one that I made in the article. But like even as far as like arcade games, like that was one that definitely I mean, yeah. So arcade cabinets definitely had a whale model. But I mean, we'll see, right? Like, obviously, whether a game can be supported through a whale model. Like another example here would be any game with multiplayer, right? There's plenty of games in our libraries now that just simply don't have multiplayer because the developer is no longer paying for the servers. And clearly a buying decision is based on whether or not you're able to afford or whether or not like the game is worth what you pay for it for as long as the servers are up. And so it's possible, I mean, it would not be the first time that a free-to-play game has gone under because it doesn't have enough money. Like, that's basically the story of Paragon, right? But then there's another free-to-play game called Fortnite, which seems to be bankrolling, like, not just Epic, but like Epic's foray into being a digital distribution platform and, giving a better terms on the Unreal Asset Store and all of that stuff, so. Star Wars Battlefront 2 was the one that sparked a huge backlash over pay-to-win mechanics. I was fascinated when writing the diversity article because I actually have CD Projekt Red, the like darling of all gamers, the company that can do no wrong, despite the fact that I actually think there are some signs of like, I don't know, like I think Cyberpunk will probably be good, but I think I feel a little safer saying this now that one of the senior designers on Cyberpunk left for Blizzard. I think there is a reason that CD Projekt Red doesn't retain talent. I think that you'll run into a lot of ex-CD Projekt Red employees, and I don't think that you can actually sustain a business through this revolving door. But yeah, I don't know, like, there's definitely, like, sorry, I probably should have been talking about the free-to-play mechanics and that, like, oh yeah, sorry, it was the EA thing, but yeah, so in their Gwent, like, if you take a look at the most recent update to Gwent's economy, they actually refer to the player's sense of accomplishment, the thing that EA was pilloried for. Apparently most downvoted post on Reddit. EA unironically made the same appeal to a player's sense of accomplishment, and there is not a single comment that refers to the fact that it is the thing that people mocked EA over. And it is completely about them shifting it so that the animated cards will cost you real money to get. It is a price increase that they introduced in the game. They didn't call it a price increase, but if you crunch the numbers on what has happened, you will not be able to get the same things that you got in Gwent without spending money. And they used a player's sense of accomplishment to justify it. Now look, I could say, you know, the gamers TM are a bunch of hypocrites and we can ignore them. I don't. It's an article about diversity, so I say, clearly the people who play Star Wars Battlefront think about, you know, microtransactions and appeals to a player's sense of accomplishment in a different way. And being able to navigate those differences is, you know, is the difference between succeeding and failing in game development. You know, obviously it's fun to like dunk on people. I am almost certainly going to perish. Like obviously it's super fun to like tell people they're idiots. Yeah, I really should not have stayed up there. But on the other hand, like I do think it's a little ridiculous that EA makes, you know, what I felt was I think they meant it when they said that. Like obviously they, you know, they want to maximize revenue for Battlefront, and clearly, you know, they listened to the player base. They removed those elements from the game, and the subsequent, you know, major release that they had did not have a similar monetization strategy. I honestly think the strategy behind Battlefield 5 is all about getting you to buy an Origin Premier membership, which is why that game gets small, free, incremental updates to the game. Yeah, I do find it very frustrating when people, you know, give CD Projekt Red a pass because they made The Witcher 3 and everybody seems to like that game. But, you know, as is always the case, you know, I take people at their word. If they say it is, you know, this is why I oppose this thing, then it's like, well, I will take that as my starting point, and if I find it's inconsistent with observed facts, then I'll point that out. I don't really get a lot of mileage by turning around and saying, you know, I think you're a liar. Like, obviously, if I'm not going to exercise at least some principle of charity, then there's no point in me. Like, at that point, I'm just projecting my opinion onto someone, regardless of how they feel. So, I mean, maybe, but this is the thing. I don't actually think the history of EA is that bad. I think EA's turnaround. So I think basically EA was unlucky to become unpopular enough at the time that like YouTubers, and particularly like the ranty YouTubers, were taking off. And I think the problems that EA was having were turning around right around the time that people were like hammering that company. And I actually think that EA by and large makes very good games that, you know, are like, they make mistakes, but I tend to notice that they correct them very quickly. So for instance, the Battlefront thing, like they redesigned the economy of that game. Battlefield 5 doesn't even have DLC, let alone, you know, game mechanic changing microtransactions. But nobody gives them credit for that. They're always like the awful company that always does bad things. And, you know, Valve had really crappy business practices for a really long time, and everybody loved them because they could dangle Half-Life 3, and, you know, Gaben with his good deals was still a meme long after the sales stopped being as good. So now again, like obviously EA is my hobby horse. Like I just love talking about EA because I just really like EA games. if I feel like EA, like, okay, so I'll, you know, one thing that I don't like about EA, one thing that I'll never forgive them for, Dawngate. I did not like that game. I did not like that game's player base. I didn't like anything about Dawngate. But I've not declared an oath of enmity against EA for Dawngate. Yeah, and fair enough. But I mean, like, I'll put it to you this way: like, if our moral outrage is based on based on the size of the property, like if it's the fact that it's Star Wars rather than The Witcher, that is the reason for us getting outraged. I think that's just a matter of taste at that point. There's nothing inherently wrong with the monetization strategy. It's just that you prefer game A to game B. So, but again, that's an opinion thing. Like, this is the problem. I have the bully pulpit on the channel, so like obviously I sometimes wind up being dismissive of certain positions that people have, and I'm conscious of the fact that there may be deeply held beliefs and points of genuine disagreement. I like the fact that you guys are willing to present your own ideas on this, because I know it's not always fun to have the person in the captain's chair saying, I disagree. But I don't know, it's my job. It's the, as a professional influencer and thought leader, thinkfluencer, word puncher, idea haver, I don't know, like I try to present my position as directly as I can, and to try and show how it reconciles with things that I think that people bring up. So I hope that does not come off as me being too I don't know, too evangelical on my stances. If we're cracking open heavy cans of worms, should we also talk about the absolute disregard of parents in regards to what they expose their children to, using popularity of title as basis of ignorant? GTA 5, almost every other modern Call of Duty to make it. Yeah, I mean, recovered Geth climate change technology, experience gain 125. Let me just go through this. I'll finish mining the planet and then I'm gone, because at this point I've done a full cast and I really need to go to bed. No, the dictator is no longer recognized by my government, and the what was it? The runner-up, the presidential runner-up is now the internationally recognized leader of Venezuela. Exciting times. Just one quick second here. Research computer squad bonus to shields and whatnot. Oh, I'm sorry, Mad King Brutus. I made clearly all the right choices in the Samara mission. They were the right choices because they were my choices. But yeah, so like so as somebody who loved film, it was my profession for a while, and I attribute the ability to see. I really wish I knew what that achievement was. Somebody who attributes his, success in being able to operate in film on the fact that I was exposed to good movies and that I studied them. I thought it was dumb that I had to wait until I was 18 to see certain quality films in the theaters. And I remember I saw A Clockwork Orange. I think I was 14 to 16. I realize that's a really big gap in terms of emotional maturity and things like that, but I definitely saw A Clockwork Orange at a younger age than people intend you to. And that movie had a very profound effect on me, and I thought it was incredible. I am so happy that I saw that movie, and I'm so happy I saw that movie at that time in my life, because it lined up with a lot of things that I was just personally worried about and interested in, and it was kind of the first time I really appreciated that there was a filmmaker behind things, and that it was things were specifically being done and there were choices being made to you know, to create a certain effect in me. I thought it was phenomenal. Yeah, I, you know, in to speak to my own particular case, I feel that an age restriction on a Clockwork Orange that would have been strictly enforced on me would have been to my detriment. But I'm not opposed to nutrition labels on food. And I think especially because we can't always expect parents to understand, like, you know, for the same reasons that we don't want our parents falling to moral panics, like the idea of me not being able to play like Dungeons and Dragons or Magic the Gathering when I was young because of moral panics. For the same reason we don't want parents to be susceptible to moral panics, we don't want them to be, you know, uninformed when it comes to the things that students do. So like I think the thing for me about ratings, the main purpose that they serve, in my opinion, is that they make it easier for parents not to fall into like moral panics, that it creates sort of a ideally credible system that says, this is what's in here. If you feel it's okay, you know, this is on you. You have the information you need. Same thing as, oh, this thing has like 6 Cadbury cream eggs worth of sugar in it. Do I want to put this in my body? I am now an informed consumer, you know, that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think it's irresponsible for parents to use gaming or movies or any other entertainment product as a substitute for, you know, for raising their children. You know, and I will say, like, I'll admit there are some games where I've looked at some of the content and I'm like, did you really need to do that? I'm not saying they can't do it. I'm just saying, you know, was this really the best decision that you could have made for the purposes of the game? But again, that's a taste thing. But yeah, I mean, there are some like 13-year-olds that probably should not be playing Call of Duty. I don't think it'll turn them into mass shooters. I just think that it's, you know, it's probably not the best thing. And by the way, I also think that's an invitation for game developers to actually make games that are appealing to that age range without, like, not everything has to be grimdark. Like, you know, Fortnite has demonstrated how far you can get with sort of cartoonish or just, you know, generically pleasing images. Although I always say this, but it is really weird that the guns are real. Like, cartoon characters, but apparently you need to have realism for the guns. That is just, that has to be an American thing. But sorry, let me just Can we please not talk about Venezuela? I'll talk about China then. Depends on how right you're going for. A Paragon gets Samara, Renegade gets Morinth. I was given a choice between Samara and Morinth. How did Clockwork Orange speak to me? I'll definitely give details. I'll just catch up with chat really quick. Large cause for what's probably wrong with me is not only watching Clockwork Orange, but also David Lynch movies when I was young. Yeah, I saw Blue Velvet not too far after. Like, yeah. Like, I have to wonder, what was it about Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering where my dad was like, a bridge too far, but like, Blue Velvet, you know, at the, you know, at the mid-teens, or not mid-teens, but like the mid-tens? I don't know. I don't know what the proper term for that is, but like, what, I actually don't understand that that division, to be honest. But that's what it was. Bruto says, in Australia, what is your favorite David Lynch movie, by the way, Galva850? In Australia, we got... Oh, and by the way, I saw Blue Velvet again probably 6 years ago. I liked it when I first saw it. I did not like it the last time I watched it. I like Mulholland Drive quite a bit. The cowboy scene especially. Oh, that's some good cinema. But yeah, last time I saw Blue Velvet, not my tempo. Where were we? In Australia, we got a personally you think weird system. G for general audience, P for parental guidance, most Disney stuff, M for mature, Star Wars 3 or Avengers. Really? Oh, I get it. Okay, mature adult. If you're under 15, you need someone over 18 to watch. Modern action movies are restricted. Okay, so yeah, the mature thing is a bit weird, but that's actually not that different from Canada. Canada, we've got G, which is the tamest possible material. Like, some Disney movies don't get Gs. Some Disney movies are PGs. So G is really tame in Canadian standards. So we have G, PG, 14A, so that's kind of equivalent to your 15 plus. I guess we skip a step. And then we've got 18 plus, which is basically our... Oh, actually, you know what? There's a slightly different... I need to double check this rating system because I think we recently changed it. Canadian... Yeah, okay, no, I wasn't as wrong as I thought I was. So G, suitable for all ages, parental guidance is advised. 14A, persons under the 4 years of 14 of age must be accompanied by an adult. 18A, persons under 18 years of age must be accompanied by an adult. R is restricted. In this case, you have to be 18 or older to see it. So I actually think A Clockwork Orange might be a hard R. And then A is admittance restricted to people 18 years or older. Sole purpose of the film is portrayal of sexually explicit activity or sexually explicit violence. So it's what the X used to be in ye old days. You're just remembering Dennis Hopper's character, yeah. I mean, there's some things I like about Blue Velvet, but the movie overall did not work for me. Oh, god damn it! I completely forgot to get probes. Maybe I'll just leave it there tonight then. Or no, well I'll finish the one. Don't get me wrong, exposure isn't always a bad thing, but you think that an actual informed decision could be made, not just blatantly ignored. It could also be tied with time as well. I don't know. Yeah, well, like this is the thing. Like in my opinion, like it's a completely like vanilla opinion that I have on this one, which is, you know, these ratings exist for a reason. If the system is imperfect, at the very least, the parent can say and actively select in saying, I think this system is garbage, my child can see everything. And at that point, they're probably just a bad parent. Like, you know, I don't think, like, you know, the easiest argument against censorship, right? You know, if it's so corrupting, then the most corrupt person in society is going to be the censor. Like, it's, like, I am definitely not one of these, like, you can't say that people, or, you know, oh my god, somebody please think of the children. Like, I have personally benefited from seeing something that I shouldn't have. And, you know, I took the advanced English classes, and I liked that. And obviously, when you take advanced English classes, you are dealing with heavier subject matter. And it's not always, you know, ooh, they're talking about boobies and pee-pees, you know. Like, it's, you know, there's like the book Regeneration. I remember doing that in what we refer to as middle school. So that has, you know, homosexuality, that has the First World War, it's got the trauma of the First World War, it's got themes that, like, if you're somebody who still, like, uses the term gay as a pejorative, then probably you're not really going to get that much out of Regeneration, the book. And what's going to happen instead is, rather than being able to read it at a time that you will find it a good piece of literature, you're going to be talking about, oh, that lame book we read back when, whatever. It's like, no, you were just an asshole when you read it. And it's, that's not the book's fault. That was, just you didn't see the content label or whatever. So it's one of these things, like, in the end, the boundaries need to be put down somewhere. There's never going to be a perfect rating system. There is no such thing as a work that should be read at like 12. I mean, there's books of the Bible that people say you shouldn't read until you're a certain age. But, I think the fact that we sort of exist on a continuum and that age is admittedly very arbitrary, I think having a guidance system is useful. If anything, just so that parents can have sort of some faith in an institution rather than some like newspaper saying that like Teletubbies are gonna corrupt you, or Power Rangers will lead to violence or whatever. And that in the end, obviously, I mean, in this case, we probably need a little bit less freedom of expression and a little bit more freedom of thought. But anyways, that was me going ham as a motherfucker on content labels. What else were we saying? I will get back to Clockwork Orange. You remember the day when you were 12, convinced your parents to get you Scarface, The World Is Yours game on PS2, sold MA15. I have never played it. I did like the Scarface movie, but it really should have been R. Australia only got an R rating on games a few years back. If you ever want to attempt a roller coaster of emotions for censorship, spend 3 months as a mod for 3 IRL girl streamers on Twitch. Galva, I have had not 3 girl streamers. I have done my time as a mod in women streamers. It is one of the reasons why I seem very woke on like feminist or like just general, like on the whole like Me Too stuff and the like, just generally the way men interact with women thing. Like, there is just a certain perspective that you get from that I can't ignore. Doesn't mean that, I'm going to be marching out in every single rally. It doesn't necessarily mean that, my convictions on some things have changed. But man, was that was a very unique experience to... It wasn't so, in fact, one thing that it was not the fact that I saw it. It was actually the way that people had sort of internalized it as just a thing that happens. I'm like, no, this, like, how dare somebody talk to you that way? And then, of course, I get the, oh yeah, go refit your fedora or whatever, which, fair enough. But, yeah, man, that was wild. I've never read Catcher in the Rye, actually. Was Deadpool rated R? R doesn't mean the same thing in the States as it does in Canada. What was Deadpool rated? Probably it's a 14A in Canada. Rating Deadpool. So Alberta gave it... Oh, wow. Each individual province gives it a different rating. So in Alberta, which is kind of our... it's that's a little more conservative. 14A. In the province I live in Ontario, it was an 18A, but if I wanted, I could just cross the border into Quebec and watch it as a 13A movie, a 13 plus movie. But yeah, so I want to get back to Clockwork Orange because I think that's a little more interesting to talk about, for me at least. I think, so there's a few things that I found interesting about A Clockwork Orange. From a very young age, I was always really worried about the idea of totalitarianism. And I realized that is a super nerdy thing to say, but it is truth. And it manifested in a few different ways. So, I've not made a secret of the fact that I've come from sort of a religious background in terms of a family. and my family was really into like these end times kind of preachers. So like I remember my dad really liked watching like Jack Van Impe is one name I remember, and like credit cards were going to be the mark of the beast, and the Antichrist was always just like one step away from emerging, and it was going to be a one world government, and all the Christians were going to be killed, and it freaked me out. And that was sort of my first taste of it, because I don't even know if it was, I don't even know if it was explicitly totalitarian in terms of what they were presenting, but I just sort of imagined the system. And like it just really got to me. And when I was sort of considering those emotions that I had, and when I was considering those feelings, I sort of reflected on the fact that obviously I didn't quite express it in these terms, but the thing that I really found just shook me to the core was this idea of living in a place where you could not believe what you believed. And obviously punishment by death, like that's obvious. It's a really heavy thing. Like, I was in single digits when I'm thinking about this stuff, so that's kind of heavy to put on an 8-year-old or whatever. But like it wasn't just like, so obviously dying for your beliefs and all that, obviously there's something noble about that, and I've learned, I'm old enough now to have ridiculous ideas that dying for your beliefs is a grand and noble act that one should aspire to or whatever. I just it struck me as so wrong and so frightening that that there could be like a part. And by the way, this really indicates how lucky I am in terms of what country I got born into. But like it just it shook me to the core of this idea that there could be a place in the world where you were not allowed to think certain things, and that it could be punishable by death. Now, obviously, if I was a more sophisticated, young child, I would reflect on the fact that I really didn't choose my Christian beliefs at that time, that they were a function of, where I was born. But you don't need to go that much further to apply that to something other than religious beliefs, right? And so around the time, and this is something that, to this day, still really sticks with me. It is, it is a thing that I feel very strongly about. So Clockwork Orange is about that. But Clockwork Orange, so the thing that's so interesting about A Clockwork Orange is that the totalitarian state is never overt. Obviously when Alex meets his droogs again, it's pretty clear that the government is, is hiring a certain kind of person for police enforcement. Obviously the movie is talking about a police state in terms of dialogue, but it's not 1980. It is not the boot stepping on a human face forever. And I just thought it was so interesting that somebody so hateful as Alex, somebody who, is just introduced as this, this worst possible human being, and just the sheer revulsion I had at this idea that he was, he was not allowed to have his own ideas, that he was turned into basically turned into somebody who was good through sort of this manipulation, the Ludovico technique. And also the idea that, he didn't have any free will. I mean, essentially, this is kind of the Paradise Lost argument, right? That he can't be good because he doesn't have the ability to choose to be good. A lot of that stuff really spoke to me. It was something that crystallized a lot of ideas that had sort of been sitting with me, but maybe hadn't found expression in that way. It's an entertaining and it's a good film. It's one with some very powerful ideas. And as it was when I saw it at that time, I was sort of mature enough to sort of understand what it was talking about. And I'd sort of already had this baggage over the idea of what it means to be somebody who chooses things and to be somebody who has sort of moral agency. And again, obviously I'm using terms that I wouldn't be using at the time. But it is a very unique experience to live with ideas like that for a while, not find expression, and instead find its expression through a work like A Clockwork Orange, which maybe doesn't come out, it's not a pamphlet, it doesn't come out and say, and the moral of the story is, it's something that you experience. It was definitely a pretty unique experience of that movie. It's still a movie that I really like. So, yeah, I mean, in the name of following the rules, do I think, young me should be prevented from seeing A Clockwork Orange? No, my conception of what films could be would not be the same if I did not see a movie like A Clockwork Orange. But, do I think that experience can be generalized to everybody who experiences media? No, some people just like seeing breasts. Some people just want to see a guy get cut in half. And, the reason the parents need to be involved is that I don't think the government has any role saying what the kid... the government is not in the position to say, okay, well, this kid's worried about totalitarianism, so he can see A Clockwork Orange, but this kid just wants to see the boobs, so he can't see A Clockwork Orange. The government's not going to be able to know that. The most likely person who's going to be able to see that is the accompanying adult. And it's not a perfect system, but it's better than one where we just immediately assume that some individual makes that call on somebody else's behalf. Thank you very much for the bits. Let me catch up with chat. So sorry for derailing the chat and keeping a longer system. You might need this for coffee tomorrow. Do you want a photo, Mad King Brutos? Let me just take a quick minute. I am going to catch up with chat. I basically just want to mine out this system and then I'm done. And it's hard because we've got this one. Oh. Cool. Anyways, let me just catch up really quick because there was some interesting stuff happening in chat that I missed. So there's some chat about new psychological disorders. Dude, there's an entire slew of new... Oh, wait a minute. Due to a large, bizarre, fake intimacy that a normally guy viewers create with their minds with female streamers. Yes, that is a huge problem. I talked about that a bit during the Dancer DLC stream, actually. Not the Monday one, but the one when I first did it. You had to deal with a guy who was thinking that he was super entitled because he was a sub and top tier Patreon for one. Yep, that's a huge one. I hate the idea of send me nudes or I will disrupt your business. And obviously that's not something I as a guy need to worry about. But at the point he was sexting this chick and cheating on his girlfriend, and between us people in chat, she got revenge on his cheating with you. And you hated the dude, so you found that double fun. Well, you gave me bits, so I guess I need to say attaboy. Are we going to start talking about 1984 Brave New World now too? Because they're really good heavy novels. I like both. I actually like 1984 a little bit more because I actually think 1984 has some humor in it that's not always appreciated. We're talking about Brazil, but Brazil is a wonderful movie. Do you know its original name was 1984 and a half? That's a great title for a movie if you're cinephile. Brazil, oh man, Vegas Dome is by Terry Gilliam, the guy who did 12 Monkeys and... what are some of the other ones that he's done? I guess Monty Python Quest for the Holy Grail. It is a science fiction. It's a dystopian science fiction movie. So in the same way that kind of 1984 is sort of dystopia. Yeah, I'm glad that you got out of it, Mad King Brutus, but been free of that for over a year now and doing a lot better, and in school. The demands are coming. I'm okay sending the demands for a photo that doesn't cross any personal boundaries. Sexy pics of the coffee. What do you want me? Do you want me to take like the freshly poured coffee and like pour it over my bare chest? Do you want like a video to hear me screaming? Actually, you know what? I worked at Starbucks long enough. I'm sure I can handle hot coffee. Oh, I'm gonna run out of probes again.
Probe launched.
All right.
Probe away.
Yeah, so for those of you who want to know why I think, I'll wrap it up with this, because we're obviously well and truly done with Mass Effect now, but I'll take care of Restcel's goods. If you want, yes, now that you've said it, that wasn't an offer, damn it. That is actually a growing fetish. Is it growing because I brought it up? Wait, are you serious that people want to see hot coffee poured on a bare chest? Tread carefully. But yeah, so the scene that I think is funny in 1984, I've talked about this so many times, but honestly I have nothing else to talk about on stream right now. The scene that I think, it actually gets a laugh out of me every time I read it. So there's a scene where Winston is in the cafeteria, and he has got his colleague Syme, and he's going on about the destruction of words and how fun it is, and how, you know, they won't even be able to have a conversation like this in 20 years because all of the world's words will be destroyed. And basically, like, Winston's just kind of in one of his dark moods. Like, you know, Syme was going to be the ones who eventually was vaporized. You know, he believed the party line, but he was too clever, and the party, you know, the party didn't like clever people. And you know, it sort of, it introduces this idea, and then Syme is just going on and on and on about the destruction of words and how proud he is of his work and so on and so on and so forth. And basically there's like a throwaway line. It's not even a throwaway line, but there's a line that's like, Syme was definitely going to be vaporized. And I like it because, yes, it's talking about the big oppressive society and all of that, but there has to be some element of Winston in there where it's a guy who just won't shut up, and he's really tedious in lunch conversation because he's still talking about work, and he is specifically expressing the wish that Syme be vaporized at this particular moment. I don't know if it's intended that way, but that line always gets me a laugh, or gets a laugh out of me, and I don't know, maybe that just means I'm a weirdo. But anyways, you prefer pouring wax on someone personally, but hey, coffee works too. I have too much luxurious chest hair to consider wax. But anyways, guys, I am well and truly done. I actually did a full stream tonight, even though I started 2 hours late. I need to make sure I'm gonna have to set an extra alarm for tomorrow because I don't think I'm gonna get enough sleep for tonight for work, and I need to make sure that I'm both getting enough sleep, but also making sure that I'm getting to work on time, because this week has been very hard for that. But thank you everybody for hanging out. In particular, I want to say thank you very much for those of you who came because of Cultist Simulator and stayed through, or even entertained, you know, the possibility of me playing Mass Effect. Wednesday is my normal Cultist Simulator night. You know, people who are upset that I didn't do Cultist Simulator, you have every reason to be, because it really is not something that I normally do. It's just that I've done 16 hours of the game right now. I am really looking forward to doing more of the long, but I didn't think I was going to go for a full stream tonight, and I do kind of want to give people a chance to see that video. So the 8-hour Heart Victory should be available online. I will admit I am very tired by the end, and I am obviously short on patience for people who tell me how to play the game, so it's not necessarily my finest hour. Before I go to bed tonight, I will make sure that the Steam stream was recorded, and if it is, I will start uploading that tonight. That will probably be available in the morning because I know 8-hour videos take a really long time to process on YouTube. No idea yet what I'm going to play on Friday. There is the Global Game Jam, so I am tempted to start on time for that, or possibly I don't want to cancel the stream, but I definitely want to make sure I do something that I can leave fairly early on. I might do Cultist Simulator, by the way. I've not eliminated that as an option, but I do need to decide on my own time for that. But for those of you who did come for Cultist Simulator, I do other games. It's not always bad to signal that to other folks. I will be getting back to the game, and I will be doing a lot of it because I like Cultist Simulator a lot, and I don't want to just pull a bait and switch on everyone. And again, for those of you who were disappointed by that, I am sorry, but I also appreciate you giving me the chance to do that. So, but let me just take a quick second here. Player pay. Oh, I've only read Slaughterhouse 5. That was for an English class, so that's what the coffee's for. Good lord. You came for the probing and mining of planet. Well, it gives me a chance to talk, so I figure if people like hearing the voice, then codices and planet mining tends to play to those strengths. 3 days in a row overdose simulator. Yeah, a bit, but it is a wonderful game. And for actually, this, maybe I should mention this. If you've not checked it out, Cultist Simulator is 25% off on Steam, GOG, and Humble. You'll notice my GOG affiliate link is no longer there. I'm no longer an affiliate with GOG. They dumped me, and they've not paid me yet, by the way. So they have a couple more weeks based on the contract to pay me. But I have a feeling they're going to say, well, you didn't make enough. And I'm like, that's not what the contract says. So not too happy about how that was handled, to be completely honest. But it is their choice. And obviously I was not a big earner on that thing. I did sign up with them originally because I did like the DRM free idea. So if you still like GOG, obviously continue to do it. There's just no way to continue supporting the stream through that. Friday I will stream. I don't know what I will stream. If you haven't bought it yet, Cultist Simulator, 25% off, GOG, Humble, and Steam. Humble is probably the best of the options here because you'll get a little bit back to charity. And what else? New blog. So if you want to read the blog, systemchalk.ca is probably the easiest place to find that. It's an article on diversity. It's an amoral argument for diversity in games. It may not be the best that you've read, but it's the one that I published. And I like it when you read my stuff. So with that in mind, let's find somebody to host. Either GOG pays up or we riot. Honestly, the big thing that bugs me about it is I know that they took... So I found out after the fact that the money that went to me from GOG, or allegedly went to me from GOG, was actually... basically, that was taken out of the developer's portion. So like the developer got like net of expenses, and apparently my affiliate link counted as an expense. This was never explained to me, by the way. I had to find this out by looking at what a GOG contract looks like. So effectively what it means, if they don't actually pay the people who they canceled their affiliate status with, it means that the collective group of those people, those developers were charged for the business that was brought in, but the people that were in whose name it was charged for aren't actually paid. So again, let's just keep it. It's not my intention to burn bridges or that. Like, it is possible that this is going to be handled within the month that they have to pay me, and that I'm just a little impatient on this. I will be contacting them to resolve it. But yeah, basically, people who weren't earning a certain amount as affiliates were cut off, and it seems that the money is taking a while to get in here. So yeah, I know. I definitely think it's quite dodgy. But again, it's important to keep in mind that I do not have a basis for complaint of not being paid yet, because they have a month from the termination of the agreement to pay that out, and it has not been a month since that agreement finished yet. But I don't have a problem saying that this is something that's going on. And I'll be honest, I'm not entirely happy about the fact that came out of the developer thing, because I always saw it as a way of being able to support the cast through, being able to support the cast through a purchase that you were already going to be making. But I'm not entirely sure that I want like Weather Factory to pay more because I stream the game on their page. But I probably should have read things a little bit closer. So it's important to remember this is not the basis of a complaint yet. It is possible that I'm just being impatient, and at that point, that money's been taken from the developers to pay for me, and I don't feel good about it, but I didn't know it at the time, and I just need to make sure if I do an affiliate agreement like that in future that I'm okay with the developers being charged for that. So I report it as something that is ongoing for the channel right now, but please do not feel that you need to work on my behalf for that, because I have not let GOG know about it yet. I am giving them the full amount of time as is laid out in the contract, and if it doesn't turn out, I will definitely let you know. But I'll admit, like it's been hard there for a while before the cancellation of it. I was not able to get any replies from the GOG contacts that I had, so it was fairly apparent that I was not worth it to them. So, anyways, sorry, that's a really negative way to end on it. So I have some other ideas in mind. I don't have to have an affiliate agreement with people. I do have a couple things that I have in mind, but honestly, support the games that you like. If you feel like supporting me, obviously direct donations are the best way that you can control everything. If you want some emotes in return, you can definitely give Twitch a little bit of the money as well and subscribe. But of course, there's only 3 money amounts for that. And if you just want to support the cast by being here, being pleasant in chat, letting people know about the cast, and otherwise just getting my name out. I'm really bad at marketing, and it's very clear that from the Steam stream, I didn't mention that, by the way, we were #1 on the Steam streams for a really long time. Dota came back on, and we were no longer that. But it's clear that this stuff sort of travels well enough that I'm able to sustain a larger audience. And obviously, I've not done a good job of getting people's attention. So, one way you can support the stream without spending any money is just letting people know about it, because the more people know about it, maybe the better chance that more people will see. But anyways, folks, that is a better note to leave it on. I think I'm going to host Kilgore Trout, because it's been a while. He is playing Legacy of Kain Defiance. I hope you have a good time over there. I'm not going to be hanging out for any meaningful amount of time, because I really do need to go to bed. But I hope you have
for lack of a better word, is good.
Positive note, bitches.
Oh, Johnny, you of all people don't need to give me money, but that's awesome. And of course, Mad King Brutus bought me another coffee. So, guys, that was not a sneaky way of me. That's not a sneaky way of me trying to get some donations in, but that is really nice of you. But let me give you some appropriate music. One other thing I did forget. This is a longer ending than the Lord of the Rings. Malicide, Flowfi, Ottawa Streamers, The Sleepbringer, Johnny Big Time, Vanguard Master, Captured Shield, 616, Yorkshire Bastard, Unknown Brigade, Kaylee Cakes, Amber Racer, Tristan Live, Inferno Fowler, Mr. Franz, Custom Game. I missed it, so let's try that again. Johnny Big Time, Annie Amber Ray, The Sleepbringer, Inferno Fowler, Rambler 146, Yorkshire Bastard, Custom Game, Starbright Knight, Captain Shield, 616, Mr. Franz, Ottawa Streamers, Unknown Brigade, Vanguard Master, Ulster Fighter, Maka Angzir. Oh, we lost it again. I'm going to do it even faster. Captain Shield, Starbright Knight, Caddy Cakes, Ottawa Streamers, Mr. Franz, Inferno Fowler, Flowfeed, Sleepbringer, Freighter 5, Ulcer Fighter, Maka Angzir, Malicide, Sir Tristan Live, Custom Games, Amber Ray, Nubasaur 42, The Rambler 146, Vanguard Master, Johnny Big Time, Under Brigade, and one more, which I couldn't find, but I know I've said him before. I tried my best. Twitch does not let me read that in time before they shuffle it. Thank you to everyone who is hosting the stream. I really do mean it. I'm bad at getting the name out, so you guys are helping me a lot. Thank you to those who support monetarily. Thank you to those who are just participating in chat, who are watching, who are giving me concurrent viewers, or saying nice things about the stream in private. All of you really do keep me doing this. There are lots of other things I can be doing with this time, and I really do sometimes question whether or not Twitch is worth the time. You absolutely make it worth it. It is why I keep doing it. It is why I didn't give myself a break today, even though I gave myself a break from Culture Simulator. So thank you so much. I really do mean that. And please enjoy your time with Kilgore Trout, and I will see you all Friday. Have a good one.